ETHBarcelona. Public infrastructure. ETHBarcelona.
Connecting everybody together.
So it's really about starting the cultures, leave it better than you found it, right? Non-profits to make profit.
Really, truly altruistic.
Could we have war without banks payrolling it?
Provide value for society.
Sell everything I own and become a hippie. DAOs will be to corporations as democracies were to monarchies.
Ended up getting a master's degree in digital currencies, and we built a community. We hacked the DAO for the rest of the money. We had to give that back to everybody. The only hack where everybody won, giving people agency and making things fun. Focusing on what we needed to focus on. Giving people agency and making things fun.
Reward value creation.
Co-opetition creates sustainable regenerative commons. Governments and taxes out of the equation. Actual design validation.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Forest stage here at ETHBarcelona. We're about to begin our afternoon program. I wanted to introduce you to Rika from Guild XYZ. She is the founder. Come on up. You're welcome.
Hello, everybody. I'm incredibly happy that I don't have a mic in my hands because I speak a lot with my hands, so this is a radical opportunity. Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm the non-technical founder of Guild XYZ, and I've been building organizations IRL as a hobby and now as a profession for a few years, and we have some really interesting findings moving into the DAO space, and this whole mixing IRL and remote first and like URL organizations, and I'd like to tell you everything that we've went through and kind of this is a very, very practical talk. So this is not the theories and the ideologies behind it. This is like a step-by-step guide of how to build more strength and resilience into your own company, organization, community, product community, whatever you're building, because whichever you choose to build out of those, inherently you're also building an organization. But it's just a question of nomenclature, so we're just talking about the groups of people that work together, essentially. And I'm just going to call them organizations throughout the talk. And yeah, let's dig into it. It's arguably more important to build the most resilient and optimal organization than the product itself, if you're a product community. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to give this talk, because just recently, we really found out how important this truly is, because you know you're doing a good job at it as a leader, as a manager, as a whatever horizontal or hierarchical structure you have, whatever your position is. You know you're doing a good job when it doesn't matter what the market circumstances are, it doesn't matter what the vibe and the sentiment of the whole ecosystem is, or if you lose all of your code that you've built. Any catastrophe that can happen with a digital company, you can still look at your team and feel like you can build this whole thing up together and have this strength in your relationships between the people that you're working together with. And we recently had this feeling when we had our offsite not too long ago, like 2 months ago, and I can't tell you how unstoppable that makes you feel. We could lose the whole of Guild XYZ that we built in the past years and launched recently, and I would be, sad for a few days, but I know that we have such a strong team and community and everything that we've built that it can survive, and I want you to have the same. So this is the talk. And yes, let's dive into, oh, perfect, it's changing nicely. So I'm not going to go into the full organizational structures that we can talk about. I'm only going to show this one. This is the consensus in Web3 that we're going towards. This is what I hear most people talking about. It's called TL organizations, if you want to look it up. I highly recommend reading about them. The core idea here is that this whole system is like a self-sustaining organism, and it's built on meritocratic and egalitarian policies or ideologies. These just mean that everybody has an equal chance and that they're judged by what they're doing and not like financials, how many tokens they have, and stuff like that. And these are the two verticals, the bigger and stronger, that I'm going to talk about. This is like the core message in the whole talk of how to switch between the two and how important these phases and seasons are. Growing bigger By that I mean establishing new business development opportunities, hiring new people, getting more reach in your social media, whatever that makes new things for your organization. That's what I mean by growing bigger. And growing stronger is establishing and strengthening the relationships that you have with the new people and the people that are already in the organizations. And what we found is that to have this like most productive and effective way of working together, we have to go in seasons between these. You can't just you can't just keep on growing mode, because we see so many companies fail. I'm going to give an example in a second. But what works with us with Guild Team is that we have longer seasons of growth periods and strengthening periods. It kind of came naturally, but now I see that retrospectively as a pattern. And what we do is we have about 1 to 3 months, depending on whatever is happening in the company, as like a growth period. But in that, we have like short sprints of growth or strengthening, which is like a few days to a week. And this is to match everything else that's happening in the space, match like people's needs, that they are on vacation or they're tired or they are energetic. A little bit, that's just, as a woman in the company, match cycles as well, because that changes productivity as well. And you have to change between these ever so often, and I recommend seasons. And the people that are, wait, I'll show you an example. So I made these little circles. The little purple circle here shows the initial organization, and it's like a strong purple. Once the company or the organization goes into like gigantic growth mode, it dilutes it so much, the community, the productivity, the efficacy of the work, the communications, the responsibilities, the value alignment, everything. And just to give you an example, I always say this because this is one of my friends was the community manager at Olympus DAO. It still is a protocol, and they had a gigantic community, heavily financially incentivized, and within a year they grew like an unprecedented amount, and it really showed, both on the financial side and the community side, and it really showed because it fell apart. The community fell apart. They had so many contributors, they had to get rid of them because there was no productivity left in the system because they grew so fast. And what I recommend doing is not to just catch up with the growth and just do a little bit of growth and then a strengthening. This is what I talked before, but this is like the visual representation of it, of like have some growth and then do strengthening. Because otherwise, if you only strengthen, it's not going to be growing. It's just going to be secluded and growing stronger, but not going to grow. You have to grow, but don't do it too fast. Take time to strengthen yourselves. And the people who are responsible for like the health and the flourishing of the company, whoever that is, or the organization, whoever that has that role, these are like facilitators and the social strategies people. With Guild, it's our CEO, Bruno, and myself included. We constantly search and look for signals within the team, within the whole community, within our very loose, like only Twitter community everywhere. And we kind of we are very susceptible to different signs from these inputs, and we put our heads together and we find issues and then we solve them, and have reflection periods as well. For us, it goes really naturally because we have like gut feelings for it. If you don't have that gut feeling, or your experience is you don't have experience, I highly recommend scheduling these reflection periods and going through the points that I'm going to show right now, and do it every month from like top up. Or top down, sorry. By that, I don't mean like a hierarchical top down. I mean more like whose role is it to look out for the organizational health. Top down and then bottom up as well. But bottom up, which means scanning the company for feedback by surveys, by one-on-one conversations, by everything that should happen. It's also subjective, but like 6 months is a good rate to do that. And yes, the reflection point, bullet points. You can also take notes. This is also going to be online, whatever you decide. Priorities is the first one. This is something that comes from the very core of why you started this whole organization, the whole purpose, the mission. And this is like covering your whole philosophy. And the mission, vision, values, trifecta sounds so corporate-y, and I hate how I have to say this, but you guys know what I mean if I say it this way. But you have to do it to have efficient teamwork. And look at the whole picture that way. And you really have to decide about if everything fails, what should work. This is in between those three somewhere. And if everything fails, what is something that you want to hold on to and still keep on working on it? For us, it's culture. But the point is that you have to make everybody aligned with that what should work at all costs. And that way, it's going to have a much nicer environment. So for us, the number one and number two are culture, and then we're super passionate builders, and like this passionate loving of like work that you do is super important for us to keep up. And this is like a joker card, because culture not only has like the vibe in the office and in the Discord and in our group chats, but it also has like the output that we make. Like the actual product feels different because of our culture. The events that we do, the work style that people have within the organizations, the leadership style, the role management, that everything essentially is affected by culture. So it's kind of like, saying the most obvious thing, but for us it really is the most important. And kind of to say a little bit more about our value systems, to give you pointers and exacts what are good examples. It could be anything that you decide on. For us, we're this experimental builders and very passionate about it. And we don't fret from like sunsetting projects and leaving things behind. It doesn't matter for us that we put a lot of work in it. If it doesn't work or people don't like working on it, we leave it. Like that's very, very important for us to keep this culture up. Also, we're super honest and explicit. I think that might come from the Gen Z leadership. I don't know, but it's hard to maintain instant feedback. It's super hard to be that self-knowing and knowing each other and trusting each other that much, but giving instant feedback to the other one, so important, and skips like weeks of miscommunication. It's something that you constantly have to keep improving, but it's super important. And then next point, responsibilities. I have a personal story how we messed this up a little bit, but first, a little more generalizing. So when the organization's tiny, you have like 4 people, everybody does a little bit of everything. And as you grow, we're now 25 people, you have to create sub-areas, areas of responsibility, and kind of naturally, so how it grows is you have your orange circle, that's your little like team who started it, like the 3-4 people who actually were there initially. And then you grow this gigantic organization with the like black outer circle. And then there's this study that I put in just to look smart, and also that I researched this thing, but it says that there's specific numbers of people that can effectively work together, and 15 is the one where knowledge exchange still works. Above anything that doesn't work, it just fails. It can work to like a day or something. If you're trying to host a Twitter space, it might work, but it's not going to work long term. So with these subgroups, stay above or underneath 15, and actual productive work happens only at 5. That's the like minimum, like the atom of the whole group that has to be built up. Also, and the decisions, why I put it there is that as the organization grows, decision making has to be centralizing and decentralizing at the same time. By that I mean you have to that's why it's so important that you know the people that you work with, because you have to incentivize them to make decisions on their own. Because as the group grows, there's no way that everybody, or there's one person that can make a decision about everything. So every pink circle has to have a decision maker in it. And this way you make this decision tree, and obviously if it's a decentralized community, you can decentralized way appoint somebody who makes that decision. But there's definitely there's somebody who has to call the shots, no matter what. And our personal story here is very recent. We just messed this up. We just grew to 25 in the past 15 months. And we reached the point where we realized that there's like miscommunication and it's hindering our like usually really fast growth, that there's 4 like decision makers and we do a little bit of each other's work. And it's never clear who has to like keep this partnership up, move forward, call the shots. And we had to sit down and decide who's the role to actually move that forward. It doesn't matter if everybody else is also working on that partnership or also working on that communication. There needs to be a person who is responsible for the whole thing and has to move everything forward. Oh, and the subgroups. I don't know if this is, or it's fully subjective, if it's priority for you. It's really for us. You have to make sure that people get divided in these subgroups based on merit and their curiosity and their interests, so they actually work on something that they like. We have the 20-80 principle, and we always make sure that people do 80% of their work is something that they love doing and they can't stop thinking about, and 20% what needs to be done. Like, we have to do that. You can't skip that, but we try to keep that ratio alive. The strengths and weaknesses. Here, this is super obvious. I'm not going to talk too much about it. All I can say is that you have to review the full organization as a whole for strengths and weaknesses, and individuals specifically, which is one-on-one conversations and a lot of supporting, like, self-management, self-growth, and individuals who want to look inside themselves and kind of help them support this way, maybe even hire a psychologist sometimes for consultancy to have tests or something to help people recognize what their skills actually are. We did a survey not long ago. It was only 14 people who did it, but it was really, really good feedback that we saw how, like, what we really value, culture, was like the top rated, and the work environment was the top rated thing that we do best. So do that. It's really good feedback for you too. Next one is goals. For us, we, as like a newbie company, we've been doing some entrepreneur startup work before, but we've never had a crypto company before. And with that and the space changing so fast and everything that you all know, we didn't see more than, for the past 6 months, we've been working in a way that we only saw the grand vision of what we want in like 5 years and the next month. There was like no in between, which really showed we didn't have a deck or anything because we have a public roadmap that's for like our next month and few integrations, but we could not see before. And for this, I really want to say, have one thought about have your grand vision for, the ultimate goal. Have one thing that you want to achieve this year or next year. Have one thing for the next 6 months. It can be one sentence, just one thing, that's a goal, and one thing for the next month or this month that you're working in. And the last thing is the adjustments based on everything that you just did. All these you have to go through every month. Take everything that you learned, and this is going to be the base of where you need to ask for advice, who you need to ask for advice. Is there a hole in the team? Is there a hole in the whole system? Where are we losing like effective work? Where are people not happy? And this is also the point where you can decide if I need to hire more people, if I need to fire somebody. You have to learn how to fire people, and firing is not a bad thing. It's good for both parties. I know I don't know if it sounds weird, but if you fire somebody because they didn't fit in the company, it's good for them because they don't waste time with you. It's kind of like a relationship, like you break up and they don't waste time with you anymore. They go do their own thing, and they hopefully will find something that fits way better for everybody. And you fire them because they hinder the organization in some way, shape, or form. And learn how to fire. It's not bad. Just communicate very clearly. Have patience, time for growth, and everything. And sunsetting projects and pivoting. We did so much narrowing and pivoting in the beginning last year because we tried to solve all the things at the same time. It doesn't work. People don't get it. You can't communicate that. So we narrowed it down. That worked. And the sunsetting part, it also helps to look through all of these things. And sometimes we do a lot of research and development. So we have a lot of groups working on different things. And then we sunsetted quite a few projects because job satisfaction is super, super important for us. And there were people in the team working on a project that we made up. And they liked it. They were great at it, but it wasn't their thing. Like, they weren't super passionate about it. And it was on Solana, so you know how that goes. Like, we built community. We tried to build for a community on Solana, and it's not really a thing. But it was more important for us that the people didn't like working on it. So we didn't push it. We put it in the drawer. We might take it out sometime. We might put the same thing on Ethereum. We'll see. Oh, sorry, guys. Anyway, that was my last thing. Oh, nice, sweet. There we go. OK. Last, the conclusions. It's everything I said before. So take these regular checks. Have seasons for growth, for stronger growth, for bigger growth. this is what I mean by seasons of focus, have smaller nodes in the company based on merit and interest. So this way, there's more accountability, responsibility, and decision making. There has to be a critical eye for what your strengths and weaknesses are. Be like as bold to yourself as possible. Doesn't do anyone any help if you lie to yourself. Know your weaknesses. We really knew, coming from Eastern Europe, we really knew we need more network exposure. So that's how we looked for partners in the space in the beginning. And then do at least one goal a year, one for 6 months, one for 1 month. That gives you enough to think about and actually focus on areas of work, and then take your reflections and adjust everything accordingly so that everybody can be as happy in the company as possible. Does this include the questions or not? Oh, I guess not. OK. Thank you so much. I wanted to ask one person or the audience if they know the organizations that they work at or for, what their mission statement is. Because I think if you don't, then do these. But I guess I don't want to, yeah, I'll probably have to go. So think about that. If you don't know what that is, talk with everybody in the team and figure that out, because it's a very long process to figure that out, but the most important, because that's the core of everything that we discuss. Congratulations on doing that. Thank you so much for listening.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Forest stage here at ETH Barcelona. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Luca Mossini from both Enzyme and Avant-Garde. Come on up and give him a hand. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Mike? Hi. I was actually listening to Reka's talk earlier, and she was, I'm very happy that I can use my hands. I don't have to hold a mic. Well, I'm Italian, so expect a lot of body language and gesture because we are genetically designed to do that. So I'm Luca from Enzyme / Avant-Garde. Avant-Garde being the core developer of the Enzyme protocol. We're one of the OG protocols in DeFi, actually DeFi before DeFi was even a thing. And today I'm going to talk about DeFi asset management, which is increasingly important both for DAOs and I would argue also for CeFi. Let's unpack those things because there's first I would like to talk about DAOs. DAOs has a few set of challenges. The first one being like I guess an obvious one, the lack of treasury diversification, which becomes very, very obvious during bear markets. Second one is the cumbersome decision making. There's lots of people shouting at each other. It's very difficult to make decisions, and it becomes very clear if you spend enough time on DAO forums. And there's little decentralization and accountability. Some DAOs don't really deserve a D. Not all of them, of course, but sometimes they're still like very centralized structures with very little transparency on what's going on behind the scenes. The reasons are pretty obvious or pretty clear to me. There's priority on building products and building solutions rather than managing treasury, which is more like a financial background type of thing. DAO governance is very cumbersome and very chaotic at times. And also, there's also a lack of tooling and treasury management expertise. Most of the DAO founders are typically technically minded or from a technical background, so there's still not many people from financial backgrounds or treasury management skill sets that can actually do this job. The effects of this lack of management, massive drawdowns. You see treasuries, wallets going down 80, 90%, 95%. Like during the year, so that's pretty crazy to see. Forced sell-offs. DAOs realize that they need some cash runway, so need to sell tokens, or they need to sell blue chip like assets like Ethereum or Bitcoin at the worst possible time. And in extreme situations, we also see violation of the very ethos of crypto. Like like I won't mention any names, but like things like taking over like the collateral of like users in the protocol. So that's pretty extreme. I like to close every section with a sort of tweet, closing thought. And in this case, it will be like, it's about time that DAOs really start to manage their treasury in a more professional way. Let's go to CeFi, because I would like to include them in the conversation as well here. There's yield generation, which is totally opaque. We've seen that in many different cases. Users don't control their assets, so not their keys, not their coins. And management, we see that happening all the time. Management hiding issues over and over, like tranquilizing the market, say everything is okay until it's until it's too late. Again, the reason here are understandable. Most users, let's be honest, they just want higher APIs. And so how do you get higher APIs? Using higher leverage and more leverage. So if my competitors using leverage, then I have to do the same in order to match that. And most of the CeFi players, I would say they use opacity or they consider opacity as a sort of competitive advantage. So there's really no incentive to be more transparent. But, of course, when things come crashing down, then we have panic because, of course, users don't know what's going on. So if you don't know what's going on, as soon as you smell something, then you just run. And so there's like sometimes insolvencies are the result of like a self-fulfilling prophecy because everybody starts rushing away. And of course, you also have these pauses, withdrawal pauses. I think it's funny that they call it like we pause the withdrawals, like they think that they won't resume it at some point. My father used to say, there is nothing more permanent than a temporary solution. So yeah, this creates like domino effects, as we can see. bankruptcies one after the other because they're all sort of connected with each other. So I guess the big question is, what can we do to prevent this type of systemic failures? Our CEO, Mona Elisa, who you probably know, she should have been here, she couldn't be, and she actually wrote an article about this a couple of weeks ago, and she actually goes into much details about like what the solution could be. And her point, or main point, is that the answer is more DeFi. Some say like, is DeFi dead? Or like, maybe we should like do less DeFi. I think we are like very much against this trending idea. We're actually way more into the idea of like we need more and more and more DeFi. And the reason is like simple reasons actually. First of all, like you have with DeFi you have 100% transparency and real-time reporting on all the on-chain activities. User finally in control of their assets, which is probably the most important thing. And last but not least, you have higher accountability and certainly like a lot more market scrutiny. Like, so bad apples can be pointed out much quicker, right? I gotta say that it's not just about CeFi players taking responsibility and trying to be more transparent. It's also us as users or as, let's say, educators in the space to actually to become more demanding towards these type of players, because we need to ask this type of question: how much leverage are you using to boost your APIs? Or how are you giving out loans without asking for collateral to your counterparties? And is there any mismatch between your short-term liabilities and your like long-term capital commitments? This is the case, you know, some cases, for example, Celsius. So more DeFi means these three things. Users are way more informed. They know what's going on. They see the accounts on chain, and therefore they're much less likely to panic because they see what the reality is. And there's no more shenanigans, no more shady deals, no more like things behind closed doors. So there's much less likelihood of systemic risks. And of course, the market becomes much smarter. So you have a sort of self-regulation. We could actually argue that like the transparency that DeFi can bring is much better than any type of regulation. So that's one of the points that I want to bring home. And it's actually also about time that CeFi considers on-chain transparency as the ultimate marketing tool. I think transparency will become much more important, and many more players will use transparency as a way to say, hey, we're here for the long term, we're sustainable, and our business model is on-chain is here to prove it. So very, very excited to see what can happen with on-chain DeFi asset management. A few best practices for DAOs and CeFi from our own experience. First, like I said, I'm gonna really like push on this point a lot. Be more transparent. So like control the asset with multi-signature wallets or non-custodial contract. Communicate your processes very clearly so that portfolio management, how you allocate, how you like what kind of strategy you're employing are very clear, and document the key decision making, like governance, like how you're gonna react in times of crisis. Try to anticipate like what possible like what the possible worst case scenario could be and how you would react in that case, and make it very clear for your stakeholders. And second tip is go on chain. Keep funds on chain and use smart contract to enforce rules and to prohibit any type of deviation from those rules, and provide stakeholders with real-time and historical tracking, which is very much possible with DeFi. Some of the things we are actually most excited about, and this is probably mostly for DAOs, but I would argue also for like some more centralized players. The typical setup in a DAO would be having funds in a multi-signature wallet like Gnosis. Now, one of the issues that using that tool is not very practical for treasury management, because you have a lot of signatures, and for every decision you have to sign 7 or 14, something like that. So what you can do with Enzyme is actually to create a vault, which is totally non-custodial, which is created and owned by the Gnosis Safe, and you can actually then delegate to one single wallet or like n wallets that have the same permissions, and you define those permissions, which can be like which asset can they invest in, which protocols integration they can use, and even like how much slippage tolerance they can take. And so they can implement a DeFi strategy which is very restricted, which is very controlled, and they can then use all like the basic value proposition of Enzyme, which is the integration, with 20 protocols on Ethereum, 4 or 5 on Polygon, and they can really do like a lot of things in there under the same hood. And as a feedback loop, then they can report back to the DAO or to all the DAO members with an automated real-time track record. That is, so you have a bit of like, in a nutshell, you have decentralized control, you have risk management in place, you have speed and efficiency of implementation in and out, and you also have the full transparency of having the reporting in place. So I think that's a very neat setup for a DAO that wants to delegate treasury. And it's not actually necessary to delegate it, because like this one person that actually operates the vault could actually well be a member of the same treasury committee of the DAO. So it doesn't have to be somebody outside the organization. It can be perfectly somebody inside, but with the ability to act more independently. It could also be a contract. So that delegation could also go to a contract or to a bot. So that can be developed to run a certain strategy, going from, for example, a snapshot decision that goes into like Safe Snap, I think, and then goes through steps of automation that again implements those things on chain on an Enzyme vault. And of course, option 3 will be delegate the asset management to Avantgarde Finance, which is a company that I belong to and that provides services on top of the Enzyme protocol. So actually, just to make it very clear, so like, I want to clarify the distinction between the two. So you can actually do it yourself right out of the box. So use Enzyme totally in a way, like totally permissionless. Everybody can use it, create vaults and run strategies. You can use it yourself, but with premium services, like for example, creating a contract that runs a strategy for a certain type of user, or like all the way to the other end of the spectrum, which is like handling like the management through Avantgarde. And also, one of the other cool things that you can do now, and like we're actually about to launch this, we're in beta testing for this thing, you can actually put your own UI on top of Enzyme. That means that you can do stuff like this. So this on the left is our interface, and on the right you have your logo, your colors, your user experience. So basically, you can use Enzyme as just a technology provider, and your user don't even need to know that there's actually an Enzyme vault running in the background. You just use the basic layer of technology, which is very secure, has been battle tested for the last 5 years. All right, a few other things. We're gonna be in Paris on the 20th. We're gonna run a side event with Cryptio and Gnosis Safe about on-chain infrastructure for custody, asset management, and reporting. So if you guys are first, if anybody is in Paris and is interested in taking part of this, it's an invite-only event. So feel free to talk to me, and I'll get you hooked up for the event. I'm happy to see you there. Actually, yeah, I'm excited to take some of the people here from Barcelona and bring them to Paris as well. All right, last tweet is DAOs, CeFi, and ReFi, which actually I learned yesterday what it was, and I am very happy to have learned it because I think it's a very cool idea. So ReFi as well. I think there's going to be more and more discussion around this topic, and definitely we want to be part of it because it's probably like one of the next waves of adoption for like DeFi and make it more useful and more socially impactful. So it's about time to build something together. So feel free and come to talk to me. I'm Luca, I'm Italian, and I hablo español también, así que si alguien quiere, podemos hablar español. Yeah, this is my presentation. So we have 5 minutes left, so I was actually very quick. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them. Yeah, I guess we need a mic.
So first of all, can you make the presentation available for?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So my question is, although I imagine most people here agree that the solution is more DeFi, not less DeFi, do you think that organizations are scared that the fact that all of the information is on chain might constitute an attack vector that they might want to defend themselves in regards to?
Yeah, I think it's a good point, and I think it's one of the main concerns for like centralized entities, and I think there might be ways like to, of course, like if you go on chain, then like things all like on Etherscan will be, you know, like there'll be ways to identify your activity. So like very elaborated or sophisticated attackers might actually take advantage of this. They will have to be very sophisticated. For us, for example, with the white label solution, we can, first of all, we can make the vaults not visible for the rest of the community. We can also hide the whole activity log, so that can be like completely only for the stakeholders that you want to show them.
I imagine that is in regards to the interface, not obviously to the chain activity itself, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Luca.
Hi.
How does this work, the curation of the DeFi protocols that are available on Enzyme? Is this permissionless, or do you gate what kind of protocols are available?
Yeah, well, we have a very highly skilled protocol development team, and we have a roadmap of, now we have around 20 protocols integrated on Ethereum, and we have a roadmap where we integrate like 3 or 4, let's say 2 or 3 protocols per quarter. And so like typically we would do research. So you can consider Enzyme also as a pre-selection of the best of DeFi, because we don't integrate just any protocol. We really do our research. We speak to the protocol team of the other protocols, and we actually do develop adapters for every single integration. So it's a smart contract level that they are integrated, and that goes then to an audit. Typically, audits are like one of the most important bottlenecks, because then because everything has to be audited very thoroughly before it can be deployed to our users. We are super concerned about security. That's probably the first and foremost concern, because like especially for an asset management protocol, like that's you know all you got. I mean, that's the most important thing.
Can you set, can DAOs set individual spending limits for, or investment limits? So could you say the fund manager is entitled to invest into Element, but only up to 15% of the total portfolio?
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question.
You could authorize a DAO to say invest in Element Finance. Could you specify that the fund manager can only buy up to 15% of the total portfolio in one fund or in a particular fund?
Well, you can, no, at the moment you can define like what assets the asset manager can go into and what protocols they can use in terms of like you on and off this integration or that one. So at the moment you cannot like specify this like maximum percentage allocated here or there, but it's a good feedback, so I'll take that on. 48 seconds. All right. Good. Thank you very much, guys.
great. Oh, great. Am I contacting them? Hello. So we have a very interesting surprise for you guys if you want to do this. It's going to be a very quick exercise. So there is a new technology that's being introduced by the Doing Good team in conjunction with ETHBarcelona. It's called Moments. If you guys are interested and you want to participate, stand up right now, take out your camera or your phone, and take a selfie of yourself. And yeah, if you want to do that right now, come on, get up if you want to participate. Okay. There we go. Okay, take a selfie. Okay. So once you take a selfie of yourself, go to ethbarcelona.com/moments, and then you can mint an NFT of yourself. And just remember to include your NFT ID that should be on your badge. And you can do this with yourself, or if you take photos of you and friends, you can also go out and find some of the speakers and presenters and do that. And the thing that makes it very different is that it kind of turns IP on its head, where the owners of the NFT are actually the subjects of the NFT. So you could take photos of yourself, or if someone's taking a photo of you. So it's a little bit of experiment in kind of messing around with intellectual property. So again, if you want to visit ethbarcelona.com/moments, you can give it a whirl. And if you have any questions about it, feel free to find people like me with these shirts or the staff. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, and our talks continue. Welcome to the Forest stage at ETHBarcelona. So I wanted to introduce to you Ulyss from AP Wine. Come on up. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Is that working well? Can you hear me all correctly? Awesome, cool. Yeah, just want to go back on this moment, actually. Let's make a moment together, because that sounds fun, and so we can all be together in the same picture. I'm just going to take a little selfie here. Hey, Barcelona! Thank you, everyone. All right. My name is Ulyss. I'm one of the co-founders of AP Wine Finance, and today I'm going to be introducing how to unlock tomorrow's production today. We're going to be talking about DeFi, of course. And just as a temperature check, I would like to, I can't see much with the lights, but I would like to know in the room, how many of you have ever tried DeFi, you know, if you're still discovering, and how many of you have tried a yield-generating platform, like Aave, Yearn, you know, Balancer? Can you raise your hands if you tried it before? Okay, that's very good. Okay, basically, 50% of people here tried it, so please hang on. The traditional DeFi farming flow is more or less like this. You take your DAI or your asset, stablecoin, anything, and you deposit it on the platform that generates yield. So in that case, it can be Aave. And you're going to be getting, what, 1 to 10% on stablecoins, right? And you're getting this yield so this interest rate, throughout the year, so very, very progressively, block by block. Now, this has a big problem. The problem is that you're exposed to the volatility of interest rates. So if the interest rate goes down, you're also losing yield in the future. There is also a big risk of the APY, so the annual percentage yield, just going down to 0. And this is what we saw in the DeFi summer of 2020. For those who witnessed it, it was not uncommon to see 3-digit APYs that were just not sustainable, right? So that's an interesting problem. Now, imagine for a second, what if there was a way to get your DeFi interest in advance, ahead of time? This is what we do at APY. This is the entire idea behind the project. The DeFi farming with APY just adds one simple step. Once you've deposited on your platform of choice, for example, Aave, you're just going to deposit that again on APY. And what we're going to do is give you your yield in advance. I'm going to explain how this works. Now, how is that possible? It works with two main components in the project, and I'm going to explain all these in detail so that it's easy to understand. The first component is going to be yield tokenization. The second one is yield marketplace, and we're going to see this one later. First, let's dive into yield tokenization. Yield tokenization basically takes as input a token that generates yield. So in that case, it can be a DAI. It's called an interest-bearing token because it generates yield over time. It takes this as input and outputs two different tokens. The first one is the principal token. This is representing the initial value of your deposit. The second one is the yield generated, and this is called the future yield token. So imagine for a second if you deposit one DAI on Aave, and then you deposit that on APY. You're going to get two different tokens. The PT is going to be always worth 100 DAI. It's kind of like a picture of what you deposited. And then, this is where it gets interesting, the FYT is going to contain whatever has been generated throughout the year. So at the beginning, of course, it's going to be worth 0 at the beginning of the year because nothing has been generated yet. And at the end of the year, it's going to contain whatever has been generated throughout the year. Now, we can kind of start to imagine how useful this process can be, and it totally makes sense to couple it with the yield marketplace. We're going to see how this works. Now that we understand yield tokenization better, let's dive into the marketplace. All right, forget about all that I said, and let's just focus on a very simple analogy. Imagine that there exists a platform like eBay, right? You use eBay maybe on a regular basis. You know how it looks like. It's very simple to use. Now, imagine if this eBay was allowing you to sell your salary in advance. Let's say, for example, you earn 70K a year, but you're willing to sell your salary 1 year in advance for 60K. Well, there's going to be someone else, if you're running low on cash, you may want to ask someone else, hey, do you want to buy my salary for a discount? And this person is going to say, yeah, sure, because I'm going to make a profit of 10K if I wait till the end of the year. Of course, this is obviously if you don't quit your job before the end of the year. But in practice, this is also the risk that the buyer is taking. So let's say this person buys your salary. You get your money in advance. You get 10K less, but you still get it in advance. And the person on the buying side is going to make a profit almost guaranteed. So it's really a win-win situation. And this is more or less what we do at APY. Just replace the word salary with yield. And you get the kind of traditional finance to decentralized finance analogy, where here on APY you can sell your yield in advance at a certain rate. So if you're earning 8% on Aave, you may want to sell it for 5%. And then the future yield tokens come here into place because this represents what can be bought in terms of yield. So this is how the entire buying yield functionality works. It's all around future yield tokens. Now in practice, we don't use eBay for APY. We wouldn't even be allowed to do so. We use what is called an automated market maker, and you have all more or less used it before. If you ever used Uniswap, Balancer, sushi swap or anything in the same sense. So on APWine, this basically simplifies the process of trading tokens on the blockchain, because else it would be very inconvenient. So the experience that you get on APWine selling your yield in advance is more or less what you would get on Uniswap. And the good news is you can actually try this marketplace right now. So it's open to all, it's on mainnet, on Polygon, and you can try it right now on app.apwine.fi. And to give you an example, if you're holding any ETH, USDC, DAI, any stablecoin, any assets supported by the platform, you can go ahead on APWine and get your salary, your yield in advance. This is, of course, only the first step, and there are many, many more aspects to explore in yield derivatives. This is a huge market with trillions of potential, touch. But this is only the first step, so there's a lot of things to build and explore. Yeah, that's an overview of APWine. I want to thank you all for joining this talk. I'm really happy that I got to introduce the project to so many people today, and I hope that you will try the platform. Come to me for any questions. I would love to explain more in depth, but I hope this was a clear first overview of the platform. And last but not least, please get in touch, because we're hiring. We're looking to expand the team. Whether you're passionate about DeFi already, or simply looking to discover and explore what's possible in the space, please get in touch. We're looking for developers and designers. Please follow me on Twitter to get in touch. And make sure to scan this QR code to get more information about APWine, the Twitter, the website, the application, you name it. And one last thing, we're going to be at ETH in Paris this year, later this month. And we will be hosting a very, very nice party called La Dégène. So please check it on Twitter. It's all in the link. Awesome. Thank you very much for joining. And now it's time for questions. Yes, please. I think you were first.
Hey, so I have a quick question. So what happens if someone withdraw their deposit?
Absolutely, and that's a very good question. And the simple answer is that to make it to make the ecosystem like the platform neutral, of course, one PT is always linked to one FYT. So if you want to withdraw your initial deposit, you're also going to need the future yield token associated to it, which means that if you sell your salary in advance, you're not allowed to quit your job, right? So you need to keep your capital down there. Thank you for the question. That's great. Any other? Yeah, please.
Hello. Do you hear me? Yeah. Would you consider Elementify your main competitor? And if that's the case, what are the differences between you and them? Key advantages or whatever that makes you different? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I could name, Element, Tempest, Pendle. There's a lot of competitors out there. But, in the end, we're all working on, the yield tokenization as a primary aspect. And then the global vision is to offer a suite of derivatives for APWine. So we're working on options. We're working on different AMMs for different types of tokens. This is not something I can talk about yet, but please stay tuned for what's coming. I would say for the V1 that we have right now, the main difference would be that the trading experience on APWine features the FYTs, whereas Element took the decision to focus only on PTs. So they focus on fixed rates, whereas we also offer yield in advance. And this is why I'm doing this talk today, because yield in advance is, in my opinion, a very interesting feature that lets you build very complex strategies on top of fixed rates, because fixed rates is one thing, but yield in advance opens so many other doors. And this is something you can do on APWine right now. Thank you for the question.
Hi, here.
Yes, please.
Hi, Yosu from Sextant. My question is, how do you make sure that the PT token stays like one-to-one? Because we thought a stake token from like a staked ETH from Lido was like one-to-one, and then we realized that there was no mechanism keeping it at par. So
that's a very good point. Yeah, okay. There needs to be a little bit of clarification here. At APWine, you can deposit IBTs, so interest-bearing tokens. So ETH is not an IBT. It's not even a token, in fact. But staked ETH is a yield-generating token because your balance increases in value over time. Now, to answer your question, you can make sure that one PT is always associated to FYT, to one FYT, because that's just how it was in the smart contract. So there is a piece of code that ensures that if you want to destroy one PT, you also need to destroy one FYT. And this is what I was saying before, that one PT is always associated to one FYT, because if not, the system would not be neutral. To generate $1 of yield throughout an entire year, you need that capital. So it needs to stay in the contract. As soon as there is a withdrawal, it always needs to be in the same amount. So let's say you deposit on APY, you're never locked. So you deposit on APY, and then you figure, wait, actually, I don't want to use it. So you just deposit, get your 100 PT, 100 FYT, for example, and then you would withdraw the same amount to get your initial deposit back. So you're never really locked, in fact. Even if you sell your FYT, you can still get out by selling your PT at a discount. But this gets a little bit more technical. I hope this was a good overview.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Right? Another question, nice.
Yeah, hi. I would like your opinion about similar kind of way of using your interest in advance that would be a project like Alchemix, that you take a loan against the deposit that you make, and the yield is being used to repay your loan. So in a sense, would be like using it in advance. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think Alchemix is a great platform, but in the core of the protocol itself, we work in very different ways. So Alchemix worked with, as you said, a debt-based position. So basically, you're taking a loan and you hope that it's going to repay itself. Now, yeah, that works, but in practice, you're also relying on the interest rates, and you're also exposed to probably, if the bear market really comes and hits you, you might be stuck there. APY doesn't work with any kind of debt position or any liquidation or anything like this. So the only way that you could get out would be just buying back the yield and getting out. So it's really two different mechanisms. Now to answer another part of your question, which was, what do you do, basically, what strategies can you do with future yield in advance? Well, I can think of a few examples that we could all do on a daily basis. Imagine, you have some capital that you're putting on Aave, and you're getting this in advance thanks to APY. You can then pay for your gym subscription, your Netflix subscription. You can pay for some lunches ahead of time before you even have the capital in regular DeFi. So this opens up, this is just a little part, but this opens up the way to daily usage as well. Other applications could be for enterprises, DAOs who want to manage their risk on their treasury. And imagine if they have millions of dollars and they need to pay employees. What if they just used APY, got their yield in advance, and paid employees with this, so that they don't even need to touch their treasury? That would be awesome. And this is definitely possible with APY today. That's just one of the few uses, but there are so many strategies that we can think of. We're also sponsoring hackathons, and we're amazed to see every time how many people work on new strategies using APY. One of them, for example, is the yieldception. So you've all seen the movie Inception, where there's like a dream and then another dream, and then it gets pretty crazy. You could do the same with APY. So getting your yield in advance and then reinvesting this into yield again, get it in advance, and then do kind of a loop until it's not profitable anymore. I hope that was that answered your question.
Sure, thanks.
Thank you, sir. Yes, please. I think this gentleman needs the mic. Right.
Yep. So I wanted to ask, because my concerns were about you're giving the yield in advance.
Yes.
So if you're using those AMM that they basically depend on the volume and the TVL, how you can estimate that rewards that in that yields that you...
Yeah, that's a very good point. We all got very nice questions today. That's amazing. Thank you. Yeah, TVL is, liquidity is crucial for any DeFi protocol. If there is no liquidity on Uniswap, on some token that you want to trade, you're not going to be able to do anything because there's going to be a huge price impact. Well, unfortunately, this is something that hasn't really been solved yet in DeFi. So it's more or less the same on APY. We have liquidity mining, bootstrapping to make sure that there is enough liquidity to use the platform. But in reality, right now you can swap for $1 million worth of yield on AP1. But then if you go above this, there might be price impact. And this is where it could get more complicated. But this is definitely an issue in many DeFi protocols. And we're still early, right? Awesome, thanks.
Thank you.
I hope there was maybe if there was other parts of the question I missed, let me know.
Yeah, it was fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome. Is there any other questions so far? All right. Then I guess it's clear. So I'm happy that there was a lot of interesting questions. I want to thank you again for joining this talk today. It was very interesting to explain the project as much as I can to you. And please give me feedback. Please, get in touch on Twitter again. Follow me, get in touch. We can discuss if there's anything that was unclear. And I would love to give you a demo of AP1 whenever you want. So thank you very much. Have a great conference. See you in Barcelona.
por nervios, por eso hablo hasta por los codos. Si me pongo ebrio y ya no sé si jodo, me lo tomo en serio y desconfío. El miedo a dar un salto y encontrar a vacío. Ansio que esto que siento no sea mío, porque de pronto se siente tan frío. Parece que saber hacerse bien es todo un desafío. Qué rabia me da el amor, voy a arrancármelo. Qué rabia me da el amor, voy a quedármelo. Prefiero lo tortuoso del ritual que lo decoroso de estar siempre igual. Habrá motivos para estar mal, lo debo ser yo. Que lo decoroso de estar siempre.
Test, test. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the break here at the Forest stage. We have a special treat for you guys. If we could scroll down a little bit. So we're introducing a thing today called ETHBarcelona Moments. And what you can do with these ETHBarcelona Moments is that you can take a photo of yourself, like do a selfie, or photo of friends and people that you've met, and then you can tag all of them in that photo and mint an NFT. And the way that you do that is you basically take this photograph, you upload it right here, you kind of create a description with the title, and you'll notice that on your card you have this ID. That ID corresponds to a database where you can basically mint an NFT. And the more NFTs that you actually mint, the more things you do, you can actually win tickets to the next ETHBarcelona and a bunch of other cool swag. So if you guys want to do that right now and just take a selfie of yourself, go to ethbarcelona.com/moments and then post. and then start posting. And just remember, if you take photos of yourself with other people, remember to add their ID number with a comma in between. Okay, and thank you. And now, let's see, we're about to introduce the next segment. Give me a second. Hello and welcome back to the Forest stage here at ETHBarcelona. We're going to have a fireside chat today. Guys, come on up. Okay. Nikita and Anton will soon be joined by Julian, but you guys can introduce yourselves. And yes, this is Nikita Sakdev from Luna PR. And Anton, yeah, go take it away, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. Really nice to meet you. My name is Nikita Sakdev. I'm the CEO and founder of Luna PR, Luna VC. Nothing to do with Luna. Our name was Luna before Luna Terra. And I'm happy to announce that we also just bought over the franchise for Cointelegraph Middle East. So we're also the owners of Cointelegraph for the entire Middle East and North Africa region. To begin with, I would love to get an introduction of Anton. So Anton, maybe you can give a quick intro, who you are, and what do you do in the space?
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure being here. I'm a co-founder of Mover. Mover is the Web3 primitives infrastructure with a debit card. So we do really, really cool things with your debit cards. And then I would say the topic of economic longevity is very close to me, to us, because pretty much every day what we do is finances. And then that's why every day we see how finances affect people's lives and then decisions. So this is, yeah, it's really cool to be here.
Awesome. Thank you for that introduction. So this panel discussion is on economic longevity. And we're going to talk about how Web3 can help sustain that. And I think the first question, which is current affairs, we've seen recently the downfall of Luna, Terra, Celsius, 3AC, Voyager. It's almost been a disaster for the DeFi market. Is DeFi dead?
It's never been more alive. No, it's actually pretty interesting because yes, indeed, a lot of centralized counterparties have taken a toll and then taken a hit, but DeFi has survived. The contracts have been working. Uniswap has been swapping, MakerDAO, loans, repayments, new vaults, everything's working. Ava loans, people are making repayments. So I think that what we are here to, I would say, shed a light on is that centralized counterparties are users of DeFi projects, but they're not DeFi. And there's contracts and the logic that has been imploded there, it works. And that's why I'm actually more bullish than ever on DeFi because it just works. There was a huge stress test, indeed, but nothing has ever stopped. Nothing just everything keeps working. And this is actually something is amazing because the contagion that everybody's been speaking about. There's lots of memes, right, or contagion out there. Yes, price-wise, right, liquidity-wise, of course the entire market is interconnected and everything was affected. But from the DeFi perspective, I'm super bullish, and that's why we bet on decentralized infrastructure. That's why we bet on DeFi primitives. That's why we bet on DeFi projects building their use cases and building their tech, and then enabling that to the real world, the real life. So to answer your question, DeFi is alive, and it will be alive. And the only thing that we need to be careful about is, again, being very specific about what has happened. How the centralized counterparties fell and why, and then it has nothing to do with DeFi. They fell because of their, a combination of factors, but that involves only human factors, so the decisions, right, that they made that led them to, the downfall. And then, for example, if we're speaking about Luna and Terra situation, yes, indeed, it's the smart contract, but that's not the smart contract failure because the smart contract did exactly what it was actually, intended to do. The design was flawed, right? But then that's not the problem of the smart contract itself. So it just tells us that we need to focus more around, again, the logic. We need to focus around security. We need to focus around the use cases that we're building on. But it's the exciting time ever.
I get what you're saying, and from an infrastructure perspective, DeFi has a long way to go. I mean, the centralized system today, DeFi is at the heart of the entire fintech centralized systems, and it's going to definitely revolutionize the way it works. But these companies that collapsed recently have put such a negative sentiment in people that have been wanting to get in the space or are considering getting in the space. I feel like it has hampered newer people, newer users to come in and get involved in DeFi. And besides that, as well, touching base on the Luna Terra situation, how are regular investors, non-crypto investors, supposed to understand that an ecosystem is flawed? How do they, it feels a bit technical. I mean, for example, like myself, I'm a crypto investor, I'm not very technical. How would I know that Luna Terra is flawed? How would I know not to invest in Luna? And I invested a lot because my company's name is Luna, I thought it was lucky, which for a while it was. But how am I supposed to know that Luna Terra is flawed? And what can companies do to get in more regular non-crypto users now to invest in DeFi?
That's a tough one. I mean, the general rule of thumb is if something sounds too good to be true, then that's already a bit of a red flag out there, right? But ultimately, the question is that what exactly you're trying to get, right? So what is the expectation? What is the project doing? It's the basic rules, of things. It's put it this way, going back to Luna situation. Ultimately, what they were doing is subsidizing the growth for the sake of the internal. Oh, we got Julian. We got Julian connected. Hello,
Hi,
hello.
Julian.
Great job.
All right, I think we can hear you now. Can you just repeat it, please, Julian? Because we can.
Okay, yeah, sure. I said I can hear my voice, so there's a back loop. But I wanted to say that sorry for not being physically in Barcelona today, but great job to the team for organizing the live video.
Awesome, thank you, Julian. So we were discussing what projects can do to gain credibility again in the markets. Before I continue with Anton, maybe we can pause right there and give an introduction to yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Julian Bouteloup. I've been in the space for quite some time. It's difficult because I can hear my voice, so I'm trying to I built a couple of projects in the space, a decentralized exchange. I also have my own fund, also Quant, and I'm very grateful that it's probably one of the only one left that is not wrecked at the moment. So it's a good news. I also run Rec.News, which is the investigation, underground investigation firm for all the exploits, and also trying to go really deep in what we are building as a community, and also coming back to your questions. Also, we tend to educate people in the DeFi space to not get wrecked. That's the mission of Rec.News. I'm also the founder of Blackpool. It's a hedge fund for the NFT market, and also involving Curve Finance, which is the biggest auto market maker for stables and now crypto in a broader scale.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that introduction. And congrats on being one of the few that are not wrecked. So let's get back to you. Yeah. Let's get back to you, Anton. So how can projects increase their credibility?
Sorry,
I guess the question is...
EU anymore.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just going to continue, and hopefully the AV guys can set you up. So what can be done from a DeFi company's perspective to increase credibility and just progress in a more positive, in a stronger manner? Because all these downfalls actually just strengthen the ecosystem. Crypto is still very new, so it's okay that like these bear markets happen, crashes happen. It's very normal. But how can we progress and move forward? Is it more realistic APYs? Is it more transparency? What do you think?
You know, what Julian is doing is a great job, is trying to educate people on what exactly is happening, right? So when there's a crash, when there's a hack, what Rec.News is doing is trying to really deep down and try to tell it in a simple form to users what exactly happened, and then how to make sure that it doesn't happen in the future. So from the DeFi perspective, transparency is not an issue. What I mean is that if it's a DeFi project, there is transparency already there. It's about how we communicate that transparency. You see, the reality is that a lot of people, a lot of, I would say, investors, right, as we call them, they're not looking for that transparency. That's the problem, and that's why a lot of the crashes and a lot of the hacks are happening. Is because, again, as you know, as you initially mentioned, right, it looks like so good. It just, it can be true that sort of you're offering something like, gazillions, right, of APY, or something like, you click and then magically money grows in, tree and stuff like that. So it's
called degens. I guess we're all degens.
This is like
it's called the ape tax.
Ape tax, exactly, yeah. So as long as the ape tax is not 100%, I mean, you can survive, right? So if it's like, a bit less than 100%. So I think that in order to bring us forward, there has to be a lot of the work done in terms of educating people on the actual need of that transparency. What I mean is that it's not the projects who are doing something wrong, but we should educate people to seek more on their end from the transparency. And I think all of these crashes, like all this bad situation, it does have this clearing effect. This is why, a short-term gain projects, or even, scamming projects, they naturally die just because there's lack of new funds entering the system, so lack of new investors. So this is where the sustainable projects models, this is where projects that are actually building something, they keep building, the users that are actually interested in the tech, they're interested in whatever you're providing, keep using the services. This is how we grow. It's just, I would say, the deviation, right? What happens in the bull market where there's a lot of new people that are just interested in getting money quick. And there's like no easier way than to get rid of, I would say, like that negative perspective than, what we're now in bear market.
Mm-hmm. I mean, some might argue that Luna Terra, the ecosystem, was continuously building. Can you give us a few examples of projects that you believe really have high chances of winning the DeFi space?
Curve. So, I mean, not a chances of winning it, right? They already won it. And that's just because there's a very clear product market fit. So I think that in order for a project to survive in whatever niche, right, there has to be a clear product market fit. And what it means is that you're not creating a problem and then solving it. It's just that there is already the problem that users are facing, or the project or somebody's facing a sort of problem, and you just solve it in a very efficient manner. And this is basically how it happens. And that's why, for example, like even, we all know like rec.news, because they do one thing very well, right? They focus on, for example, providing like a clear insight. It was a big hack. If there's a hack happening, the entire space knows it, because again, that's where the transparency, right, comes in place. People will find it out sooner or later. And then what Rec is doing is like clearly explaining what happened. So when people see something got hacked, they want to go there because it's a clear product market fit, right? So they're interested in learning more, and this is where they get like the news. They know that it's easy to read, right? It's clear to understand. So going back to DeFi projects as well, same thing. Clear problem and then clear solution to that problem. Just simple as that.
Julian, would you like to add on to that? Oh, we can't hear Julian.
Let me see. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, cool. I completely agree with what you just said. What we're building in DeFi at the moment is not, I would say, like not necessarily like rocket science, but we're basically replicating the project that were built in traditional finance. So instead of having market makers, then we have auto market making. Instead of having centralized lending platform, we have decentralized lending platform. So all those different products were built for decades in traditional finance. It's exactly what we're doing at the moment. Until we have those products and then we start thinking outside the box and build something that's truly innovative and doesn't exist in traditional finance. Until then, for now, we'll be duplicating those different products. And coming back to your first questions, and then I think the answer, what you said, was very good, is that DeFi is actually stronger than before those different events of bankruptcy and people borrowing money on speculative assets. The reason is, if you check who was able to receive or get back the money, there are the platforms that are fully decentralized, for example, Aave, Compound, then the liquidation worked perfectly. The only liquidations or the only system that failed to liquidate those people on time is the papers that were signed legally. So traditional finance failed, and the people that built those projects on top of DeFi are the ones that made those very bad marketing for DeFi. But DeFi is stronger than before, and those products work perfectly. It's only the people that built products on top that lied to their customer and lied to the people that were borrowing money and all different things. But so the error or the issue is again on the human side, but not on the technology, because technology proved that it was stronger than traditional finance.
Awesome. Thank you for that insight, for sure. What is your background, by the way? Is that a fox with a hat?
It's my rect inspector. It's the one that is on the street investigating everything that happens in DeFi. And DeFi provide back information after something happens, but we also, I'm not sure if you guys saw the video, I cannot see the audience, but we created 2 years ago Opium Diaries, Dystopian Dreams. And 2 years ago, it was pretty novel and those ideas about governance tokens and lobbying and how the DeFi market will be manipulated by pseudo experts or influencers and centralization of power. But now this is actually truly, it happened, and everything, it's live. And we also released a second video, what's called Ape Tax. And if you check on YouTube the date of the release, it's actually right before the swan, the black swan. So we try to not only investigate things that happens in the DeFi space, but also try to think as a community of what we are trying to build. Is it something that will make the world a safer place, a better place, or just replace this 1% that is currently in control of society by ourselves, newcomers, the one that are building DeFi, and will potentially replace those people that are in traditional finance.
Yeah. So Julian, you brought up an interesting point there. You talked about the DeFi market being manipulated. So this was an interesting fact. When we talked about how the DeFi market can progress from here, we talked about better, not just better infrastructure, but long-term projects that actually have fundamentals. Speaking of manipulation, what do you think needs to be done to protect us from that? Are we looking at stronger regulation? Do you feel the regulations need to mature a little bit?
It's a good question. We want to use basically DeFi decentralized finance. So we want this product to be decentralized. Anyone can build them and anyone can access them. But obviously, in building DeFi, you have a huge systematic and risk in general, because if anyone can build anything and make it accessible for anyone, then you have some vulnerable people that can enter the space and then get wrecked. I think what we need is, the question is about what do we need in order to make this DeFi safer, right? That was the question.
Yeah, so do you feel we need to tighten up on the regulations?
Yeah, so I truly believe that we need to work closely with regulations, and I don't really like the fact, I'm not in the side of people saying regulation is bad, because at the end of the day, regulation is there to help people to make a safer place for people. We need to work closer with them, but we don't want them to innovate, because regulation is built to regulate innovations and not the opposite. So what we want is to make sure that people understand that with this blockchain industry and blockchain projects, people will have access to more products worldwide, so anyone can access them, anyone can benefit from them. And also it can be beneficial for those governments and regulations in a broader term, meaning that they will be able to track the supply chain of exchange of all the different assets that are being communicated across the world, so we don't end up in another like subprime crisis in 2008 from the US that escalated across the world. So I think like regulation, we can really work closely with regulation to make sure that they understand that what we're building is to make the world a better place. And at the same time, the user understand that if we don't have regulations, then we'll have more and more stuff happening than what we just saw over the past few weeks. The reason is because people use DeFi as a tool to generate those high APY, but then they borrow money, they lend money to other clients, and those clients did not have access to what was on the balance sheet. The reason is because there was not a direct connection between trading, traditional finance, of those products being built, and DeFi being used. And this is dangerous, because if you don't know, if traditional finance use DeFi, but then they obfuscate the information, then it's actually going against DeFi features.
True, yeah. Like Anton said, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. But I guess degenerates will be degenerates.
There's no such thing as a free lunch, right?
Yes, yeah, for sure. And so, Anton, what are your views on the current regulations? Do you think they need to be tightened up a little bit? Do you think we need to see more maturity on that aspect?
It's a good one, because our project is a project that benefits from regulatory clearance, in a sense that the more clear it is, the easier it is for us to innovate. And then what Julian said, regulation is just a set of rules, right? And then the clear are the rules for both parties. You willing to create your innovative project that does whatever it does, and then the regulators out there making sure that your project actually doesn't do harm, or the harm is limited, or there's no systemic risk. So if you think that, we as an industry, that regulation is not here yet, that's actually not true. And then, in fact, what I'm seeing more is that there's more self-regulation in place. What I mean is that a lot of the projects that we work with, a lot of the projects even outside or connected to DeFi but not DeFi yet, proactively self-regulate themselves in a sense that it's not legally required what they're doing, but then they already enforce some sort of rules out there. And then what it actually creates, it creates more chaos than I would say than it actually helps, because when every company self-regulates itself in the manner they deem necessary, it means that we all have different rules, different things out there. So to me, having one set of rules for this is how you do this is how you do that, this is how you do it in this country, this is how you do it in that country. Now that framework, if it is clear for everyone, in the game, what you're doing is illegal or what you're doing is legal, it actually makes it easier. What I mean is, you as a DeFi founder, if you ever try to speak to a crypto lawyer and talk or tell them what exactly you're doing, and then you speak to 5 other lawyers, you will get 5 different responses. You'll get 5 different answers. Yes, that's legal, or that's illegal, or we're not sure if it's legal or not, and they're all going to be different. And this is because, again, I would say there's just this lack of clearance. So in this case, more regulation doesn't mean more rules, but more regulation means that the rules are clearer, right? So they're actually the same, they're clear, and then they're precise. So this is when we will be able to say they work. I mean, the rules are good, right? So in a sense that it actually does help the industry, or they're bad. They don't help the industry. So we just need to get to the stage where indeed we need to cooperate more, because cooperating more, this is the part that creates this clearance. This is where, as Julian said, people who are not in DeFi every day, people who are not apes, right? So people who do not ape into everything, they need to understand how this works. You need to explain it to them, because if we're saying something like, oh, I just created this new primitive of over-collateralized lending that I just minted from my a V token out there, and then someone hearing this outside of DeFi is what are you trying to tell me? What is this? It does look like nonsense. So again, it's education, it's working together, and yeah, hopefully coming up to a clearer set of terms for everyone.
Do you think regulation kind of defies the whole idea of decentralization a little bit?
I see regulation, again, as set of rules, and then every DeFi project has set of rules. So it's basically sort of you can call it a regulation, because everyone has exactly the same rules that they have to follow it. If you do not follow it, you cannot use the project, right?
I guess regulation is a broad term. What I mean to say is government regulations. When the government step in, when jurisdiction comes into place, do you think that kind of defies the purpose? Because there are countries that are banning crypto projects. There are countries that are banning crypto projects, and countries that are supporting crypto projects. Do you think? Do you think countries will eventually be able to control where crypto projects even come from? And do you think that control, even if it's a good set of rules, is kind of contradictory to decentralization?
I see. The problem is that any government, right, if they want to enforce something, they will do it. And DeFi or not DeFi, they will find a way to sort of enforce their rules. You can be as decentralized as possible, but you can regulate and enforce the end consumers. If you live in a country and this country wants to do something with you, allow you something, or do not allow you, they have all the resources to fight you.
So you said you have a debit card, right? That debit card can be used anywhere in the world?
It is, but it can only be issued to specific residents. So that's a part of regulation, right? So, and this is, for example, where having clear terms makes it easier for us, because there's one set of, I would say, rules in the European Economic Area, another set of rules in the US, another set of rules in Canada, and then name any other country, and then you would have different licenses, different regulators, different set of requirements, different set of rules, etc. So this is where, for example, clear terms, as you said, so for someone like us, it makes it easier because this is where we can innovate faster, right? So move faster. But then I also see all of these regulators from their perspective just trying to understand like how they are trying to protect from their vision like their users because they believe that, oh, our users have like some special needs, right? Or we have a special market structure, or we have like whatever existing other like legal frameworks out there. So that's why the further we go actually, you know, trying to contradict myself, but the further we go, the harder it will become to come to this unified like global structure. That's why whether you like European Union or not, whether you like the recent like MiCA, like legal framework, whether it is good or not, the idea that 30 like countries have this unified legal structure and approach to, let's say, tackling crypto is actually impressive because it set the precedent that these many countries can agree on something.
Mm-hmm. Right, that makes sense. Julian, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I think for the first time in human history, this kind of technology this technology, the vision of decentralized finance and blockchain and broader concept happens and is being used worldwide. I think regulation will need to reshape themselves because it's a technology that can be built from whatever place in the world by whoever wants. So you don't need to live in a certain place like Silicon Valley, or you don't need to be educated in a certain school, or you don't need to have access to a certain amount of money in order to build this type of projects. So I think regulation will have a tough time to regulate the space, because if you have access to a technology that cannot be stopped, then you enter in some philosophical questions. If this technology provides, it's always the threshold, you know, it's always like what kind of benefits can we get from the technology as a society compared to the downsides, compared to the bad people using this technology to harm others. And that's the question that we need to ask ourselves as a society. But we have other technology that have the same kind of impact. Machine learning, AI, artificial intelligence can provide a good, can cure from disease, and all these different things. But at the same time, can also be used by army and to harm people. So it's more like a question of what do we want to achieve with blockchain and this technology on a broader scope. And it's an important question to ask ourselves.
Yeah, thanks for that, Julian. So going back to the panel, what this discussion is about, economic longevity, how is Web3 actually going to help us grow, sustain, and grow our wealth?
It's an interesting one. So longevity means that basically we as people, as society, right? So we live more years. It means that imagine this, going back to like APY, right? So percentages. Percentages are like is magic, right? It's pure magic, especially when something comes to compounded interest. If you leave something out there for like 1%, let's say next year you're just getting 1%, right? But then if you leave it for 10 years, and if you leave it to 40 years, that's where the compounding power comes really in place. So I think that where like Web3, the crypto, as means, as a technology there, it can help us actually make our finances more efficient. You see, how has it been happening before when people would trust, let's say, like specific, government like programs, pension funds, 501k, right? So like all of that stuff has been government controlled, has been like non-transparent, has been efficient or not. What is it? For example, like just touching basing the situation here, like in Russia, that they froze the pension fund, the payouts basically, the indexation there. So this is something that you have been up to now in full controls and hands of the government, where the financial future of you is basically in the hands of like the number of people. Where Web3 can really shine is that give you at least an opportunity, at least an alternative way, is that you will have the control of your finances. And then the longer you live, again, maybe the more beneficial it will become. So I think that the full effect here is just giving an alternative way or means for people to have a bit more control of their financial future, considering that obviously if they live more, they'll have to take a bit more, I would say, like, take that a bit more into the account.
Yeah, Julian talked about how Web3 is creating opportunities for people everywhere in the world, not just first world countries, that people now, globally have an opportunity, have no excuses. They have access to everything they need via, the internet. And I believe that's kind of, that goes with the economic longevity question, where now people can also have more access to opportunities to sustain their wealth through Web3. So that's definitely a very powerful aspect of this next, our fourth industrial revolution.
I would just summarize it with one sentence, right? If people ask, well, what is that value of, I would say, like, crypto in there? Just to simplify everything, have you ever sent, a wire, like a SWIFT transaction? If you've ever sent a SWIFT transaction and you ever send, something like USDC, you will immediately, like, that's the answer. Like, that's the difference. Like, how much hustle, how much, money it costs you, how inefficient it is, and then basically how, like, old the actual, like, system it is, and then how more efficient the new system is. That efficiency, it's not like an evolutionary step. It's, it's a revolutionary step. And that's just, just all we need to know.
Julian, I had a question for you on a separate note. So we're talking about DeFi here, and of course you're the you work at Stake DAO, which is obviously a DAO. So my question is on DAOs. Are they its own trend, or are they actually assisting different aspects of Web3? And in terms of regulations, are DAOs actually a better way to look into regulation?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think over the past, I first started my venture in DAOs and Maker DAO as someone with early adopters of Maker and participating in governance, and then in Curve Finance as a DAO, and Stake DAO, Reg, BlackRock. So I've been involved in almost like more than probably like a dozen DAOs. I think the trend is changing a little bit. Before, projects were jumping into DAOs because it was easier to start a project, but I believe that DAOs are really complicated to operate, and if you want to create a project and disrupt a market, DAOs is good for management of communities and get signals from your community and direction in certain ways, but you will never be able to build or disrupt a space without having a core task force inside your project. So I believe now we're turning into something that is a little bit more soft in the DAO space. So DAO being used for community-wise, in the sense that you can do signaling, you can ask questions to your community, and if they have tokens, they can use like snapshots and different things. But then there's nothing better than having a core actions or core executions in your projects. And also legally, it's difficult now to have equity on the side, tokens on the other side can be subject to equity and dividends. So that's the reason why I believe you have the equity on one side, and the core group, core task, core decisions, and then the token being used for pure governance, but not actually to direct your project at during the early stage. This come after, in a medium or long-term plan of the project, I believe.
Yeah, thank you for that. So, speaking of DAOs being a different aspect of the crypto space, we've seen so many trends in the last decade. We've seen the rise of ICOs, DeFi, NFTs, metaverse. What will actually contribute to economic longevity? What is actually going to sustain? What's going to be the most important part of Web3? Is it a combination of all of these, or is it one particular focus? You guys are in DeFi, so are you guys biased on DeFi? What are your thoughts?
To be honest, I don't know what that winning primitive, or what the primitive that is going to bring, let's say, the next billion people in, or what that primitive is going to look like that will help next billion people to get, I don't know, new jobs, new commerce, new business. But then what I'm betting on is that whatever that primitive is going to look like, we basically, and that's the nature of what we do, we need to support it. We need to, create the rails for it, for the users to sort of like stream into the real world. But then to answer your question, to be honest, so for example, we, yes, doing like DeFi, but then being realistic. In the last, I would say, 2 years, projects like Shiba, for example, they have brought more people to crypto in a good way or in a bad way, just statistically the numbers, than everything else. And then I think it just tells us a lot, in a sense, what really interests people. And then we just need to think on it. It's just how to make sure that the next time we create something, we build something, it is both interesting, but then it's also beneficial.
It's so baffling to me. I mean, I've been in this space since 2017, and it's almost like heart-wrenching to see like a project. No offense to the Shiba holders out there, but it's interesting to see. You made a good point there that more people have come in probably from Shiba than other projects, and that is quite fascinating.
Yeah, it's pretty sad.
yeah, and they just announced today that they're actually launching a stable coin, so they're like continuing to grow. I think Dogecoin as well now has
Dogecoin with 120% APY.
Yeah, see, that's dangerous. And if you learn something from this DeFi crash, please learn that what Anton said, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. Hopefully we learn something out of this. And they're launching their stable coin. Doge actually has a fundamentally working blockchain. So it's interesting. It definitely takes away from the credibility of this space, I feel, in my opinion.
Money.
But yeah, we're all here for
guys, I'm sorry,
we're all degens.
my phone is dying, so I don't want to cut in the middle of discussion, so I prefer to say thank you very much. It was good, and keep working hard.
Thank you, Julian. Thank you, Julian. We're done with the discussion now anyways. And it was a pleasure speaking to Julian and Anton. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with all of us. And I hope everyone enjoyed our panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Forest stage here at ETHBarcelona. A very special guest right now, Josef from PON, but also from ETH Prague and Parallel Nipolis and lots of other cool decentralization projects that are super cyberpunk rock. So welcome, come on up, give me a hand.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you. Hello, everybody. So my name is Joseph, and as soon as I'll see my slides. Oh, no, I see them now. Cool. I'm going to talk about mortgages for crypto natives today. It's kind of a topic touching DeFi, but also kind of the cultural setup that we have like within the crypto industry. So something about my background. I guess I got aware of crypto quite early on through Silk Road. And I don't say it as a flex of like, hey, I've been in Bitcoin early, because that's definitely not the case. I'm saying it because, well, two reasons. The first reason, the most important one, is I think like buying drugs online should be normalized and should be fine, and people shouldn't be ashamed for doing psychedelics. And actually, as a matter of fact, I think if more people use psychedelics regularly, we would be living in much healthier society. The second reason is, well, I was aware of Bitcoin, but pretty much until 2016, I didn't take it as a revolution. I just took it as like magic internet money that you use to buy shady things online. But it was it. And it was first with Ethereum and with my exposure to Parallel Nipolis in Prague and the Institute of Crypto Anarchy and the whole cyberpunk movement that made me realize like that this technology can actually like change how we behave and what's achievable in society. I spent like 4 last years of my life within the Ethereum Foundation, where I did like various things, focusing on the Ethereum ecosystem as such. In 2020, I co-founded here at Mario the hackerspace Bordel in Prague, and if you saw some of the latest tweets about the Ethereum merge, this was the place where things were tested out. And then finally, since last year, I'm also a DeFi DJ now, and I started PON, which is what I'm going to talk about a little bit today. So, quick content. I will start with like definition of the terms. What are mortgages anyways? Then I want to talk about who are crypto natives, how do we define them, and if there are some of those among us. And then, you know, the topic is mortgages for crypto natives, so where is the issue? And then finally, I'm going to do a quick intro into how are we trying to tackle the issue through PON. So what's a mortgage? Well, you can Google internet definitions quite easily. One would be, it's a pledge which runs until you're dead, which is a wrong one. But a mortgage is literally a debt pledge which disappears or dies upon repayment or default. So it's a pledge which, you know, has a certain point in time when it goes away. And then obviously it's used in the real estate financing context. Who is a crypto native? To be honest, I don't know. This is something we are trying to figure out. But I wonder who in the room, and I can't quite see you, but please raise your hand if you consider yourself to be a crypto native. That's good. That's not too bad. There's quite a few here. But my quick definition is that, well, it's someone who obviously holds digital assets, crypto, NFTs, but it's not enough to hold them. I don't think that if you hodl Bitcoin, you're a crypto native. You're driving a particle meme, but well, you know, like you're not using it, so that's kind of the significant part of being a crypto native. I think if you're a crypto native, you have to be avid DeFi user. You have to prefer like certain types of services rather than, you know, like centralized exchanges and that kind of stuff. Also, well, me as a crypto native, I kind of have an issue with the concept of bank holidays. I don't understand the concept. Like I don't know why it takes 3 days for an international money transfer. I'm sure there are reasons but those are beyond me, which is like, I don't think we have to live in such a world. And as a matter of fact, the last 40 minutes of my life I spent on a support line with the bank. And I'm not making this shit up. I literally had a call which took 40 minutes where we went through the issue of like them thinking that a US bank account number is a wrongly inserted IBAN. That's why they stopped like transfers for like 2 weeks. So yeah, well, I guess crypto natives kind of like don't understand the legacy concept of banks and like today's like financial system. Also, again, comes to the usage, I think crypto natives are actually using and paying with crypto quite often. It's not about hodling it. And demographically, I think it's mostly millennials and Gen Zs, and I actually believe that crypto is a new normal, and like all of the generations after will just be crypto natives because they will be born in the world where like the people in this room and the people at the conference and like the many others in the ecosystem have built up services that will enable to basically bypass or just take over the financial industry because all of those services will be much more convenient and will be much more easier and like cheaper to use. So what's the problem? I would separate the problem into 3 different baskets. There is a social, there is an economical, and a technological one. So the first one, social, I think we are facing, as an industry, as like individuals, we are facing a certain constraints or certain like gatekeeping from banks. I actually think banks hate us as an industry. And well, maybe it's not even the banks, maybe it's the governments that are putting these constraints on these financial institutions. But I still think that well, they're certainly not making this easy. And like even in a place such as Switzerland, where crypto is quite normal now, if you're a company in the crypto space, and it doesn't really matter what you do, as long as you mention the magic word like crypto or blockchain, they won't very likely open up a bank account for you, or they won't kind of like want to work with you at all. And that's gatekeeping, because like you need the bank account to run a business. But yeah, let's not blame them. There is certainly like a certain aspect of novelty. There is aspect of like these things are volatile, are risky. They don't want to touch them. That's understandable. Then, well, another aspect of a social issue in relation of like mortgages or people buying real estate is that, well, millennials as a demographic group in the US as an example market are the largest productive demographic. But they are the smallest social group in terms of the wealth that they accumulated. And obviously, you can think, well, all right, like but these folks are going to inherit like all of the boomer money eventually. Well, they will, but also the life expectations are increasing, and like a whole bunch of millennials are basically getting into like a real estate market where they cannot really afford to own property anymore. So, and this is, I think this is going to get worse. There is an economical issue, which is, well, if you want to get real estate, then, well, you are for sure considering a mortgage, because like over 80% of real estate purchases, if you are not like a super rich person, are financed through financial instruments such as mortgages. So you're basically competing against like people who, just need like a small deposit in order to just like pay a bigger price. The other issue is if you're in crypto, if you're a crypto native and you want to, do the other thing and you want to buy real estate, you have to choose either or. Like now, the decision that you're making is like, well, either I'm going to keep those assets of the future, the exposure to this like future financial system, or I'm going to sell them. I'm going to go through taxation. I'm going to go and buy property with that money. So you lose exposure to the future in order to like buy something in the present. And well, another issue kind of like related to the gatekeeping is that like if you happen to be a true crypto native and like your income comes from a DAO, and you would actually like want to just sell a bit of your crypto and like go to a bank and get a regular mortgage, they'll be like, like you don't have anything, like you don't have a track of like actually earning any money. Well, it happens on like the magic internet, but to them it's not enough. And this was exactly my case. Like I had to, for 2 years, I had to fake I'm having like a fiat income in order for the bank to actually say, well, yeah, this guy actually like has an income. And then another aspect is that pricing is hard. Obviously, like all of these assets, again, linked to the novelty, those are kind of hard to price. You don't really know like you know, like how much your entire net worth in crypto is worth. So again, like don't just blame the banks. There is another issue. Obviously, we have like a whole bunch of DeFi protocols already. So you could, you know, you could take a loan on Maker or Aave or something like that with your digital assets. But there are some technological constraints. So well, most of these are pools of money. Or there's certain like systemic risks associated with that. B, like if you're considering a mortgage, like you don't want to get liquidated like in 10 years because of the price spikes. So liquidations and like the current system of liquidation is certainly an issue if you are thinking about like actually taking like 5, 10, 15 years types of loans, which you would regularly need in order to participate in a real estate market. Then another issue is that, well, all of these protocols are only working with a fraction of the assets that are out there. Like NFT lending is a thing of like the last year, let's say. But certainly there is still not a lot of liquidity there, and it's also only possible for certain types of assets. Again, towards like systemic risks, you always have to have an on-chain oracle, which again creates exposure to some sort of like third-party influence of whatever protocol you're using. And the last issue, if I skip the pricing is hard again, because obviously that's connected to price oracles. You can have your cake and eat it too. Like again, you have to like if you want to use collateral today, you have to deposit somewhere in a vault. Like you lose access to it. But you know the case of traditional mortgage is that like you actually can use the asset while you're repaying the loan against it. So now finally, let's talk about Pawn and what we are trying to do to tackle the issue. So Pawn is an open protocol which allows you to use like any type of token, any digital asset on Ethereum, any ERC20, 721, or 1155 token as collateral, even like combining those assets together and get a loan against them. So Pawn currently works essentially as a pawn shop. You just like take any of these assets. There's no whitelist. It literally works more as an open sea of lending where you can literally take anything and you lock it in a fixed term loan without liquidation risks for the borrower. It's fixed costs, fixed interest, and you only need one transaction to do it. So even without pools, you can already achieve a certain level of like user experience without having to worry all that much about like all of the secondary effects of your loans. The contracts are super simple. There is no third-party oracle, and obviously all of those are open sourced and open for anybody to read or try to break. But it's like not quite the mortgage case. It's still a pawn shop. One of the deals, just to get the idea, is a Bored Ape loan where a borrower got 126,000 DAI in credit against the Bored Ape. Well, you may think, well, you know, you're not getting a flat for that or a house for that. Well, you're not unless you live literally anywhere than the western part of the world. Otherwise, you can already get a decent property for such a loan. The interest rate on this one was roughly 4.5%. But let's talk about the DeFi mortgage a bit. So with Pawn, what we are building in the next month is a case of the DeFi mortgage. We also have a prototype for self-custody collateral where you don't have to actually transfer the collateral anywhere. You can keep it, and you only work with the right of withdrawal, which you use as collateral, which enables a lot of use cases from gaming, where you can still play with the assets that you're using as collateral. You can also, keep like access to your ENS names and so on while it's used as collateral, and you don't have to, you don't have to choose. Like you can actually have your cake and eat it too. We already have a collateral bundle, which again allows you to combine like any basket of different assets of different standards together to create like a unique basket of assets that you can use as collateral. So how does the DeFi mortgage work? I mean, like we work in a space of smart contracts and like a lot of automation, and we can already build the DeFi mortgage case on the setup, on the technology that we have today. So just a simple example. Let's take a case where a borrower only has like $500, and there is a lender who also has $500 and is willing to lend that money to someone who kind of wants to buy a particle collateral. Let's say the particle collateral in this case is an AXI, which costs $1,000. So let's say the borrower wants to buy an AXI for $1,000 and wants to play the game with it, but he doesn't quite have the full amount. And there is a lender who wouldn't mind like getting defaulted on an AXI, but only if he paid $500 for it. So what you can already do, because of smart contracts, obviously, is that, well, you combine the money, and in one transaction, you buy the AXI, you lock it as collateral immediately, and you result with exactly what we have on Pawn today, which is, well, the lender basically only gave like $500 against a collateral which is valued to $1,000, which obviously results in 50% loan to value. And the borrower didn't need the money up front. So currently, most of the lending setups are established in a way where you need the asset first, and then you can lend up until a certain percentage of value of that asset. But with just like one extra step in the flow, you don't even need like to have all of the capital up front in order to take a loan. So you can literally start like financing things in the metaverse, like in the digital space, and eventually, I think even in the real world, just like with one transaction and just a small deposit. So what we are building towards kind of for the end game is a full-blown case where we are setting up a DAO around the protocol. So the DAO will collect all of the fees and will basically decide like what are the basic parameters. Currently, it's all binary loans, but we'll be getting gradual payments, which will enable you exactly these cases of like 5, 10, 15-year loans. We're going to enable perpetual loans, where you'll be able to like change the terms on the go or swap the collateral in the meantime. And the holy grail for us is to enable people in crypto, the crypto natives, to essentially just use their digital wealth, just use the portfolio of assets what they have in crypto, use that as collateral for a mortgage-sized loan, take the stable coin, which is borrowed funds, go and buy real estate, and then repay that real estate against the basket of their digital wealth. So they wouldn't have to sell crypto, they can keep it for the years to come. And instead of like having to sell it first and getting a house and then like repaying it against the house, they can just stay in crypto completely. So this is our roadmap. This is where we stand now. The DeFi mortgage case is coming. So in case like you have certain assets that you'd be interested in using, please reach out to us. And we'll be happy to take you through the platform and like show you how things work. And yeah, eventually I think like in 5 to 10 years, you won't have to go to a bank to like ask for a mortgage. You'll be just like able to do it on like based on a couple of clicks, because not only the NFT space but the entire crypto space will be I think like much larger than it is today. But there will be like enough services that hopefully like also you guys are building now that will just enable a lot of automation in the space. Like you won't have to go through like a month to get a mortgage approved. So yeah, the summary is, well, crypto natives made this market, like things like MakerDAO and Aave, like all of these, they enabled this like huge realm of like DeFi or like NFTs, if you will. And we are trying to build something for them. We are not worried about adoption. I think it's inevitable. Like crypto will be here for decades. And the ecosystem is already large enough for us to just build a service for people who are part of the ecosystem. I also think that we are at the stage where, like, now they're fighting us, right? There's a lot of regulation coming into place, but inevitably the next stage is the stage where we win, where crypto just becomes a normal thing and we won't ever have to talk about adoption again, because it'll just be the thing that's being used. And the last message is, well, if you're thinking, about the hurdles of the bear market, just don't sell your crypto assets yet. Just pawn them instead. Like, we don't have to lose them. And finally, there is a POAP under the QR code. So if you're a POAP collector, please scan it and get your POAP. Well, thank you.
Can we do a little bit of a Q&A? We have a little bit of time. Okay. Yeah, we have a question back there. Somebody have the mic? Yeah. You want to maybe repeat the question when?
Yeah,
because there's no mic.
Oh, he has a mic now.
Okay, cool.
It's not. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so I was just wondering because, like, the assets right now are going to be super, super volatile, right? Like, especially NFTs. So, like, with the lending rates, at what point would they, default on these loans? And, yeah, basically that.
Yep. Thank you. So, so the question was about the volatility of those assets, and I guess, like, the main difference of our protocol is that, well, I guess traditionally, if that word is appropriate, basically the lenders in DeFi get all of those protections, right? Because, like, you have liquidations that can be triggered automatically if your collateralization ratio drops under a certain value with price spikes or price movements. With Pawn, we are trying to, like, move part of that risk to the lender. So we don't have liquidation prices, or we don't have liquidations within those loans. So the only case of a default is, like, if you don't pay before the expiration. But the way we handle the lender protection is that, well, this entire loan is tokenized itself. So it's like having a contract mortgage, which could be, like, shifted into an index, and, like, a large fund could, like, average out on having a bunch of these. So essentially, as a lender, if the price of the collateral of those like loans that you're holding goes against you, you can always decide to sell them before the expiration to someone else who might have a different risk appetite. So essentially, you make those assumptions early on, like in the beginning, exactly as, like, the mortgage pricing works right now. You basically choose, like, whatever like risk you're willing to take. So what we are seeing now is, like, loan to value, like, up to 50% on some NFTs. These are collectible NFTs, but you can think more broadly, right? Like, think like liquidity provider tokens, where it's much easier to price those assets, and you can create, like, different pairs which keep the same currency exposure as well. So you don't have to worry as much about like one asset dropping in the price, because, like, you can still get the same return on the asset of exposure. Oh yeah, sorry. Let's talk about it later on, I guess.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So we have a panel coming up, but before we do the panel, I just wanted to do a quick PSA. So if you guys noticed, you have these numbers on your badges, these NFT IDs. So that is your personal identification number for the festival. Now, if you take photos of yourself and you go to ETHBarcelona.com/moments and you post the photos and you use this ID in it and you tag yourself or you tag your friend, whomever's in the photo, you stand the chance of winning tickets to the next ETH Barcelona and other cool prizes. And one of the cool things about this is that when you mint these photos as an NFT, it's the subjects of the photograph that actually are the owners. You could also include taker of the photograph, but it's just a way of kind of increasing the intellectual property experiment. Okay, cool. I guess we're going to get started with the next panel. Let's see. Do we have our panelists? Okay, what's that? How are they? Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final segment that we have today on the Forest stage. We have a panel. It is a bear market survival guide and VC perspective, and we have an all-star cast. We have Jahed Mamand from Cerulean Ventures, Maria Alegre from Flori Ventures, Queenie Wu from IOSG Ventures, Mohammed Yasselhark from NOIA Capital, and it is moderated by Amos Myril from Node Capital. So come on up. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and you're lovely. Was that good?
Hello. Hey. Hey everyone. Thanks for coming and listening to us people talking. So, yeah, I mean, bear markets. It's a very big subject and something that I think will be very interesting to talk with the people here about what they think and their experience in the space. Maybe we'll start just by, very, very short introduction. Queenie, do you want to start?
Yep, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Queenie, and I'm with IOSG Ventures. So IOSG Ventures is a crypto-native fund since 2017. So we almost cover every direction in the space, from the infrastructure, which includes like layer 1, layer 2, middleware, cross-chain solution, on-chain data platforms, privacy solutions, and all the way to the consumer side, like GameFi, DeFi, and also SocialFi. So altogether, we've already got like more than 80 portfolios. So we supported teams from pre-seed stage all the way to Series A. So we're like the long-term believer in blockchain and also decentralized economy. So no matter there are like ups and downs in the market, our door is always open for the builders. Yeah, thanks.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maria Alegre. Before being a VC, I was a founder. I started a company called Chartboost. I'm from Barcelona, but I was living in the Bay Area. And I ran that company for 10 years. We raised money from Sequoia. built a team of 150 people. We were serving game developers around the world to run their business, and sold that company last year to Zynga. And then also, when I sold the company, I wasn't the CEO anymore, and I was starting Flory Ventures, which is the fund that I run right now with 3 other partners. And we are a seed fund, that a Web3 impact seed fund. So we invest in founders, early founders that are using Web3 to bring crypto to real-world use cases, like emerging market fintech, climate, creator monetization. And we've made over 100 investments in the last 18 months. We typically invest 100K checks in the very early days.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mohammed. You can call me Mo. As you can see from the color of my hair, I'm German born and raised. And I now live in Dubai. I'm the CIO of Noya. Noya is a fund Luxembourg-based. We have 2 offices, Brussels and Dubai. And we are 4 founders, very similar to Maria. And we have 106 European family offices invested with us as LPs. And yeah, I'm the chief investment officer. We have a hybrid model. We do VC and public, meaning liquid and illiquid within the same fund.
Hi, I'm Jahed. I run Cerulean Ventures with my partner Matthew Stotts. We run a small fund that's focused on infrastructure from the perspective of inter-blockchain and climate. And we just had our first close. I'm the youngest VC up here, I think. So thank you for inviting me. And before this, I was a former founder out of 500 startups with the company Magalix. We recently sold that. And so we're really looking at being at the earliest stages, building companies, and also really making sure that they have an impact on climate.
All right. Very quickly, myself, I'm Amos Meiri. Originally co-founded Colored Coins, which was the first protocol on Bitcoin for digital asset in 2012, which was actually the original, the first project for Vitalik before started Ethereum. And then built different companies, protocols, etc. Now running Node Capital, which is technical fund, I would say, running by developers only. And we invest mostly in infrastructure, decentralized networks. That's it. All right, so we'll start. What is a bear market, right? Like, I'm looking at, this room right now. This doesn't really look like a bear market, right? Like, look at all of those people. Muhammad, do you what is a bear market for you?
Yeah, so there's quite a few things. I would like to bust a few myths, so to say. I mean, generally, we've learned the term regen at this conference, so to say, right? Established it really firmly. But in the degen world, there's always this view that there's cycles and things go down, and then everything comes back up again, and then things go down, and you just have to sit it out, etc. But there's actually a very useful function on coinmarketcap.com, which is a bit hidden in the background. But if you go to on the menu, there is a function that's called historical snapshot. And I always love that because basically you can go on coinmarketcap.com, and I'm not trying to make an advert, I'm actually using CoinGecko. But on coinmarketcap.com, you basically, on the historical snapshot, you go down and you can go back in the history all the way up until 2011 or 12, I think, where basically you can choose which day you want to look at how the first page of CoinMarketCap, the landing page, looked like. And if you do that, you get surprised very, very quickly, right? So you do that for 2014, the first one is Bitcoin, there is no Ethereum, for example, right? You do that in 2016, all of a sudden something that wasn't there is now the second in the largest in the room, which is Ethereum. But there is other things that some early guys will remember, like Mate's coin, or I don't know, some completely different, now irrelevant stuff. So what I would characterize in a bear market is, one speaker just now made the point and said, like, don't sell your Bitcoin, don't sell your crypto, use it to mortgage it or pawn it, etc. I'd say, like, look at your portfolio very carefully to make sure that the stuff that you're holding actually will be there in the next cycle again. Because yes, there will be another cycle. Yes, we go up and down, basically. But it's not the same things that go down and up together, Like if you go to do the historical snapshot, that looks very different if you do the same on 1st of Jan, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, etc. So what I would say is, a bear market is always a good time to just readjust, clean, look at the stuff that you've done, mistakes you've done. If you have 80, 90 portfolios, we have only 13, 14 investments we have done. And we are going through our portfolio and saying, what have we done wrong, basically, right? So I think that's what I would characterize a bear market, basically.
But maybe instead of like, looking at the market and what you mentioned, which is one view, maybe let's talk a little bit about how does it feel. Just as an example, I'll give one example. I remember, in previous bear market, I was like a little bit shy, I would not say, but when someone asked me, like, what do I do? I'm like, crypto. I'm like, it was a little bit embarrassing to say, right? Because they just read a lot of bad things about it in the press, etc. But maybe, Maria, I want to share a few things about how does it feels and is what we're feeling right now is a bear market.
And I also want to share a complementary perspective, because you're looking at this from the investor perspective, and I've lived the bear markets until now from the founder perspective, and it feels very different, because the way it feels is when the market is not helping you, like in a moment where things are going up and to the right generally in the economy, it's easier to raise, it's easier to hire, because people are willing to take risks and join a startup. And you share a vision and people visualize that because they're excited about the future and they believe it. And now everyone is careful and a little bit scared. And also as a founder, you have to make tough decisions about how to use your cash. And it just everything feels like, doesn't matter how good of a job you're doing, if the market is not supporting you, you're going against the world. And I found that very frustrating as a founder to be operating in that moment.
All right, so Quinn, this is maybe for you. So we were in the bull market, and there was so much money on the table, a lot of investments, right? Like you've seen projects that you would think that it would be very hard for them to raise money because there was just so much money on the table.
Yep.
Also, the dynamics between an investor and a founder kind of were a little bit weird, I would say, right?
Yeah.
It was, again, because there was so much money on the table. Are you feeling that something changed in that perspective?
Yes, I think quite obviously, when it was in the bull market, when we reach out to the project, most of the founders will say oh, we are oversubscribed. But now I think most of the founders, they say oh, we are still looking for a lead. Yeah, that's quite different. Yep. Yeah. So, but we found it's really good time for our VCs or investors, because this time we got more time to do the research and we got more time to talk to the core team to discuss about their business model, their tech stack, their go-to-market strategies. So I think it's also enhanced the bonding between the two parties. It's really good for both of us. Yeah. And I think, as what you mentioned, there's still a lot of money on the table, even though it's becoming more and more difficult for maybe the later stage projects to raise more funds. But I think the early stage are not that affected. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah. So to me, really, seeing a bear market is actually, when I'm reading a lot of bad news about crypto. This is kind of to me, very, very close to the bottom. All right, so what would you, in that environment that we're kind of maybe feeling, a bear market, some would say, maybe we're not yet in the bottom, or, there are a lot of opinions even among us, right? So what is your suggestions for someone who's going to raise money right now and is building a crypto project? How should he approach a VC? Maybe, do you want to?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is I think Maria was saying this earlier, you could just go out there with a vision and you can get any price you wanted. And that's actually, it's totally fine. I don't really care. I'm not saying that's good or bad. It just was the case. Now what I'm seeing is folks are coming back and saying like Queenie said, yeah, we're looking for a lead still. I would say also just like there's going to be a lot more discipline around like what is the actual route to this thing actually being useful for someone. There's a lot of people here who are building great shit at this conference, actual products that solve a real problem. You're going to see a lot of that stuff come up. There's going to be a lot less, I hope, in my opinion, token go up type stuff, right? And which I'm a big fan of that stuff. We need it. If you saw my talk yesterday, we need to have some degens convert to regens, like you said, right? We need the degens, but I think that we're going to see, to answer your original question, there's going to be a lot less hopium out there for some projects, right? So you're going to have to, it's going to have to be a bit more serious about what is the real problem the blockchain is actually solving, instead of look at the mechanism design that's going to result in a nice inflationary token that guarantees returns to investors like me, right? So like that's really, I hope you see a lot less of that.
All right. So with every cycle, right, like bull, bear, we see new trends or new markets kind of like emerge. Like just one example that I thought about yesterday was that like 2016, 15, a lot of exchanges kind of like failed, but this bear market exchanges, at least until now, don't hold me on that, kind of like hold, but a second layer, which was the lenders kind of like really, they're all dead almost, right? So, so that's, you know, a lot of things like that happens in bear and bear market, but also a lot of new markets emerge, like, you know, less, I would say bull run was kind of like NFTs and maybe a second generation of DeFi. In 2016, it was, yeah, stupid, but it was, for example, private blockchains, which totally dead right now, right? But every bull market, it's got like its new things. So what do you think is going to be the next, I would say, cohort of, you know, interesting things being built on our industry? Yeah, choose. You can.
We're hoping for climate, and we're seeing also some interesting combinations with uncollateralized credits and climate. Just seeing a lot of innovation in that space and starting to see some early startups. Like I don't know, I can mention one we funded this month. It's looking well, helping fund solar panel installations in big industrial, both industrial and consumers, and financing all of that with stable coins and really making also enabling you to pay for that electricity with the stable coins and creating a circular economy. Like there's a lot of things that can be good. Combining several of the features in the real world, I think it enables for more time for those prototypes and implementations and growth from the ground up. So in terms of direction, climate, I guess, as a general, our fund, we're excited about those implementations for real users.
Yeah, I would add to that. I think with the DeFi waves you were talking about, I think that you've kind of had this strong demonstration of proof around price discovery and liquidity for markets that don't actually do much yet, but they do some solid things really well. Lending, amazing, right? You can hop on there and get a loan like this, right? With Ethica, which I think you folks invested in, right? That's amazing. You can get an under-collateralized loan right now with 1% default rate. Amazing. I think you're going to see this move into real-world assets, hopefully, right? Because you have these proof points around the data of the entire system really showing you this thing is worth that much, and it held, right? We went through an 80% dip. No one who's actually decentralized collapsed, right? I think that's a great point, and I want to point that thing at real-world assets and financing next and see what happens, hopefully.
Actually, I want to hear this answer from all of you.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult. Obviously, you're asking for a prediction. Obviously, that's extremely difficult because all my predictions have always been wrong, basically. So I don't want to make a prediction, but I was hoping in the beginning of the year that this year would be the year of the DAOs, basically that actually working DAOs, that people are engaged, that actually, because it's a perfect application of blockchain, basically, right? Organizing communities and making sure that you can align people around the decentralized autonomous organization, etc. But obviously, the only thing we've seen so far is, DAOs that no one engages in, votes don't happen, or even gets, hostile taken over, etc., right? So, what I would say, what I hope for is what Jared basically went in the direction is more regulated security token type tokens of real-world assets coming into the DeFi world, being able to exchange. What I would love to see is a Peruvian, if there is one, oil rig being able to be exchanged to a Danish suburban flat, basically, decentrally on the blockchain, both tokenized. We haven't seen that yet. The only thing we are exchanging is one, so to say, useless no-value token to another useless no-value token, right? Ideally, I would like to have real cash flows coming from the traditional finance side being exchanged to real cash flows. And that's perfect. Imagine Ukraine would have been tokenized already, and now imagine all these people that have to flee Ukraine, they would have been able to sell their real estate on the way out, basically, to institutional buyers who are happy to take the risk at a certain price, basically, but at least they could have cleared their real estate and they could have moved with their assets to another country, basically, right? Right now they couldn't, which is why we've had to set up as a crypto community all the crypto donation structures, et cetera, right? But in a perfectly tokenized world with real assets being tokenized and DeFi structures, like you said, that don't go down, this would have been a perfect solution of Web3 helping the real world, basically, right? In a real world application. I hope we see this kind of stuff so that we do 10x in terms of size. Because if we don't, we're not going to do 10x in terms of size, right? We're not going to 30 trillion of market cap if you take the last peak, unless we do these kind of things, basically.
Yeah, sure. So for me, I think in terms of infrastructure, I'm quite interested in the data layer. So when we talk about Web3, we talk about ownership. So if we talk about ownership, what are the assets on chain for every user? So it's not only crypto. I think data would be the most invaluable assets for every Web3 user. So we need to make sure that the data is securely stored and truly owned by the users, and also it's easily utilized or curated by the different applications. So with more and more applications in the space, there will be more and more data. So in the whole the value chain of this data layer, there are a lot of opportunities or a lot of room for improvements. So I'm quite interested to see more and more projects solve solve the problems from different angles. And then in terms of applications, I'm quite bullish on gaming because I think it's really easy to acquire more users. If we say our goal for the next cycle is mass adoption, then I think gaming is most promising kind of application, and it's really easy and to integrate the token economics, because as we see from the Web2 games, they're already very mature in-game economic system, so it's gonna be very good seamless integration. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I agree on a lot of things that you said, and to me, it's really a change in the infrastructure that decentralized applications are using today. So today, they can build a decentralized application, but in the end, kind of connecting their RPC to a centralized server or something like that. So the whole infrastructure behind the scenes of how DeFi is running or any other application is going to change with a lot of different blockchains and protocols being built right now, I think. So it's going to be a big change. And then to me, the second thing is really NFTs, which just started to scratch. And if we're talking about mass adoption also in gaming, but in other things, I think NFTs are going to play a very big role in the next bull run. Yeah, I want to talk about something that's maybe kind of sensitive and with investors and VCs, but I think it's interesting for people to hear. A lot of the VCs will kind of say nothing changed, the bear market is there, but we're still deploying funds, we still act normally, the same. But in essence, we're not, right? It's something changed. Maybe we'll talk about this, what changed. I'll start because to give you maybe more freedom to talk openly. So for us, for example, our thesis didn't change. We believe in the same thing. We believe, in the same vision. It's going the same way. I think we're a little bit more picky, I would say, right now, right? Like a little bit more picky. And maybe, we're dealing a little bit more right now with controlling the systematic risk in the ecosystem, right? Like, I think most of it kind of like over and is behind us, but there is still some systematic risk. So we're kind of like in a risk management mode, and not because we don't want to invest more. We're just dealing with a lot of things in terms of like the risk management. It takes time from us to see more deals and do more deals. So on our part, like this is what changed, I think. And now we're entering August, right? Like soon, and everyone are kind of like on vacation in capital market, etc. So to me, it's like really September is where things are going to go back to normal in a way, right? So that's on our side. I'm happy to hear from a couple of you.
If I can start on that, you passed the ball, I have to score, basically. Shameless plug. What hasn't changed on our side as Neue is that we never tell founders what to do, and we don't claim we can tell founders what to do because we're not founder-led. None of us in the VC at Neue Capital have founded a company before, except for one founder or one partner. But we don't claim that we know better than the founders what to do with their business or how to run their business. We just have certain very strong backgrounds, whether it's management consulting, investment banking, hedge funds, etc., where we would say we're very strong on valuation side, on finance, on controlling, business operations, etc., where we can add value if the founders are interested. But from that perspective, I would say what hasn't changed, at least, is our attitude. Because a lot of firms, when things go bad, some relationships can go sour, right? I mean, how come you're running out of cash? How, we thought you had 12 months run right.
Friendly investor.
The friendly investor becomes very quickly very unfriendly, right? So we don't have that, basically, because we never claim we have that. I wish I had Maria's experience, because if you go through that, like she said, I know how much experience that puts to someone, basically, right? But, I mean, if you don't count being number 3 employee in a hedge fund in 2004 when hedge funds started in Europe, outside of that, I wasn't the founder. I mean, I wasn't the founder, basically. So I can't claim that I know better than a founder how to run a business, right? So, but I think that's very important. That's why I also I don't have the conversation where I say, guys, it's a bear market, let's call all our portfolio companies and tell them what they should do differently. I mean, they have 10 times more skin in the game than I have. So I'm sure they'll make sure that it doesn't blow up, basically.
That's actually a very good point, right? Like a lot of the founders, they think that, the investor put money inside. So he's like, no, but you're investing your life in that.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
way more valuable than any amount of money that someone could put in. So it's like, I think a lot of founders I didn't understand it when I was a founder.
To defend the founder perspective, we don't tell founders what to do.
I didn't mean that you are. Sorry. I didn't mean that you are. I just meant I wish I had the experience.
Totally. One thing we did do is we got the founders together to share some experiences, because it's very lonely to be a founder, and sometimes you just feel that everything is going wrong for you, and understanding how others are reacting to the situation, learning from each other. A lot of our focus on the work with our founders is on creating community and connecting them with each other so that they can find resources within the network.
Amazing.
And another thing that we always tell founder is, anything we say is one point of view, and you're going to hear many points of view, and you are in charge of making your own decision.
Right.
Never enter a conversation meaning like, this is what you should do. Not at all. Like, this is one point of view, go find others.
Having said that, for very successful founders like Maria, I think a lot of founders should listen very carefully, because there is a lot to learn. I've seen this in founders, basically. There is a very specific characteristics and specific traits those founders have that are able to go the whole way, basically, right? And I think, you have done, I don't know, we just met, so I don't know her, but I can see from what you described that you've done the whole way, basically, right? So that's including the exit. So that's a very...
Just once.
Yeah, but doesn't matter. But I'm just saying that experience is must be very, very valuable, basically.
Yeah, I mean, not a lot of people talking about that. Like, for example, when I started to, to look for a funding for my first company, I went to the East Coast and I pitched 57 VCs in 3 weeks, okay? all of them said no. The 58 said yes. Okay, and that basically changed my whole life. So when someone here today, a few people kind of like pitched to me, trying to convince me with their idea, you know, I was
just gonna say no.
Exactly. No, I was basically I said no, but the thing is that, you know, I really first, you know, gave what I think and the things why I think it should be that or should be not. But the most important thing was that, like, encouraging that it's just one no. It's just one no. It's like it doesn't really matter. My opinion really doesn't matter if you have the vision and this is what you believe that you want to do and you want to invest your time, and you should, you know, just keep on going. So in that environment that we are today, okay, it's very hard to be a founder in crypto.
True.
What do you recommend, like, also for, let's say, a token project that's looking for funding or looking to go, you know, public with its token or whatever, as compared, let's say, for an equity, a founder that is raising money? Is there like a difference in terms of the timing? Is something more, is it easier right now, do you think, in the market?
I don't think it's the matter of like what form, like in token or in equity, because it still depends on the business model of the project. Yeah, so I don't think it has like big difference. But if you guys want to raise for your first round or something like that, I would recommend you guys to maybe lower down the valuation a bit. It's not like for me, I'm a VC, like I'm the beneficiary, but it's true. Like also maybe cut the raise target a bit, because actually you don't need that much money to build maybe the MVP or the better product, like to maintain your team to get to the next round. So yeah, just make sure you can run as lean as possible. Yeah, and also like if you are like looking for like expand the team a bit, I think you can consider to give like the more like the token incentive, like the future incentive instead of cash. Yeah, that could be help. Yeah.
How do you guys recommend someone who's looking to raise money in crypto and doesn't have the connections for warm intros, you know, to VCs to approach a VC? It's like, you know, all of us, I guess, like getting messages on LinkedIn, Twitter, you know, cold emails, right? But let's be honest, right? Like the things that you put the most attention for is like the warm interest that you're getting from people who you know. So let's say I'm not a person who knows other people. Like, what would be the best way to approach you? And here I really want to hear all of you answer that.
I'll throw it out first. I think I did this when I was a founder too, right? Like I went out and said, great, we're building in this market, and this is for sales, right? So sales and marketing. We're building this market. Who are the best customers? Why do I think they're the best customers? And you just do your standard spreadsheet thing, or you go in, if you're rich enough to have raised money from investors, you already have HubSpot, good for you. But like, basically, treat this like, if you're a founder, go out there and say, who would actually want to give me money for this? What aligns with their vision? Who is going to think this is actually sexy? And don't put together like Amos pitched 57 people. Like, okay, I respect that. Like maybe all 57 of those people were exactly the type of people who would put money in this, right? And I see he's nodding.
That's 100% correct.
Exactly, right? So you need to actually go out there and say, I'm building this thing. Who do I know has either a vision on their website that aligns with this, or has made an investment that is actually in line with it, and will give a shit about this, right? Because like you can't just go and spray and pray on LinkedIn. It's just not going to work. Like
investor he feels that from your template email, right?
Exactly. And I just have the ready. I have it loaded up. It's just a snippet. I go, thank you, not in my thesis. Good luck, right? Like because like usually it isn't. Right? It's also weird on my end because I have a weird niche thesis, so that's not your fault. But Point being, like, start from there and be like, this thing that I'm building, who is going to give a shit about it, and who is going to be a good partner with me on it, and then put all those people in your list and find a way to get into their network. It's an attention economy out there, and you're fighting for the attention of, you know, Netflix, my kid, and like walking around this beautiful city because I live here, right? So,
and two complementary things. One is use the network you do have. From, I don't know, from school, from friends, from other founders. Those can be recruited as advisors. Ideally, an advisor is investing $5,000 or like any small amount will make the interest that come from that advisor way more meaningful. It's very different to receive an intro from someone that knows someone than from someone that says, I invested $5,000 or I invested whatever, like I'm an angel investor. And that's one. And the second is go build your network, not just on LinkedIn, but in conferences like this one and in like either smaller groups and organize meetups. And in the end, you can go and spend time growing that network, which again can help either find direct investors or advisors that result into investors.
Yeah, actually, I think it's not that difficult to reach out the person that you want to reach out. There are so many ways, so many channels. I think more important is that how to give an efficient pitch. So I think it's always important to figure out, like, you should only use one sentence to describe what you are doing and also what the pain point you are solving. Is it a true pain point? You should ask yourself several times. Is it true pain points? Yeah, and then like why you can do that, but someone else cannot. And also like how many money you want, like why you reach us, like something to impress the potential investors. Yeah, and to show like you also know the VC well, like you know why you need money from the VC, something like that, like to give an efficient pitch.
Yeah, I mean, I think, by the way, that conferences are really good places. If you're really doing the research before, I think the research part is really key. I was a total kid, had no idea what the fuck I'm doing, really.
Where did you get 52 meetings or 8?
I had a friend who was an EIR at a VC firm, and he kind of like, he lined me up with so many meetings. So it was great. But again, another thing that was a problem is that the place where he came from, they did not invest. So that was actually a problem for us when
like the intro quality was not great.
Was not really great.
I have two specific recommendations on that topic. One is definitely, like also what Queenie touched upon, get the pitch crystal clear. If you have done your slide deck, 5, 6, whatever, 15 slides you have, if you've done it in a day, in half a day, spend 2 weeks to polish it. Don't come up and say it's done, basically, right? I mean, a quality of a slide deck, and go online and see the Airbnb initial pitches, the Facebook initial pitches, the whatever's initial pitches, etc. There's everything out there from DocuSign to every listed Nasdaq company. Someone has it leaked somewhere, basically, right? But the quality of the pitch really is very important, and that doesn't come with 2 days' work. If I look at the deck, because we see so many, especially coming from an investment banking background where I was spending weeks and weeks changing colors on PowerPoint slides, basically, I have no respect for founders that send me something where I know I could have put this together in 20 minutes myself, basically, right? So I think that's the most important. So we want to see the sweat that has gone into this idea, basically from the get-go, right? So I think that's very, very important. And then the second recommendation that I have is, don't try to sell your business twice. Don't try to sell me the token and then sell me the equity separately. Like everyone is trying to do that, basically. I mean, not everyone, but a lot of people are trying to do that. And then they try to convince you that they have 2 hats on, that they'll be the equity shareholder, and then when it has to come to the token economics, they will take it off, and then they will basically put the token hat on, but 50% of the token income goes to the equity holders. I mean, give me a break, basically, right? I mean, it's not going to happen. I don't want to have that conversation. Basically, those like, make it very clear. Are you token only or are you equity only?
Yeah,
but don't try to be both, basically.
That's a subject we'll talk in a second that I really want to talk about. But
it should be clear in the deck, basically, is what I'm trying to say.
I agree.
Sorry.
I think, thank you. I think that another thing that is very important is basically commitment and mental focus. Like people think I will raise money, yeah, I'll do it like on the way, but I'm not talking about the crazy bull market, yeah, but in regular market, it's like it's a state of mind that you need to be when you're raising money. I'll give you just one example to a crazy thing that I've done that I'm not proud of, but I made sure that I'm on a panel at Money 2020 in Vegas. I really worked hard to be on that panel because there was one investor that I really want to raise money. He didn't really give a shit about me when we were on stage on the panel. So I stoked him on a bar, basically, and I was there like on the bar drinking with him, and we started to become friends. And in the end, he invested almost $20 million in my fund. But it's like the state of mind that you need to be in terms of like commitment to get what you want is very important. I've done even crazier things than that, but that's not for.
Don't try that with me. I don't drink, guys. Just saying.
So, all right, let's talk maybe a little bit. You raised like a very interesting thing, which to me is also like I'm very allergic to that. Okay, it's like, okay, what are you optimizing for, right? Are you optimizing for your shareholders or are you optimizing for your token holders? It's like it's a totally different thing, a totally different structure. Do you want to expand on that? Because you just...
I can. I'm sure it's the same topic for others. I'm happy for Maria or others to expand on it.
Anyone else?
I think it's something that we're all facing.
What do you think like about that? Is this something that you're trying to educate entrepreneurs about it? Because yeah, a lot of people, they're like, okay, I can't raise for the token, I'll raise for the equity. It's like whatever works. What works for you, I'll give it to you, right? It's like
I had one founder in the bull market, at the peak of the bull market, it was November, where I brought this up in the first conversation. And then when you could see he got very quickly very uncomfortable because I pointed out the conflict of interest that he already has. And he had previous investors in the equity round where he was telling me, I don't know how to handle it, but we'll kind of figure it out. And then when I pointed out to him, his response was, yeah, but we were not sure that we would want to have Noya on our cap table anyway. So like it was basically, I haven't told you I'm interested in, so which is fine, right? But I think it's a very, very important point that I think should be very clear from the get-go, because we are all human beings, right? And whoever we meet, I believe we're meant to meet, basically. So I believe in destiny, and therefore, for me, I look at things very, very simply, right? I mean, just be very clear, like be honest about what you're trying to achieve, and that way, incentives are aligned, basically, for investors.
Yeah.
And
I mean, we agree. Yeah. I wouldn't have anything to add other than the fact that we agree. It creates misalignment of incentives. We've seen founders do that sometimes because they're trying to raise money from Web2.
Can you just say, maybe some people don't understand why there is an alignment of interest?
Well, because we believe there's only value in one, either the equity or the token. And it's likely that if you launch a token, you will never IPO, and therefore your equity won't have the kind of returns that a VC is looking for. So a VC is either investing in a company that will go the Web2 route of selling or IPOing, or it's launching a token and it has another economics in another direction. And if you're investing in both, is it because they don't believe the token's going to be successful? Like, just saying that, oh, there is some value in the company, fine, there is some value in the company, but it's not the kind of value that a VC would be looking for.
It's like you wake up in the morning and who are you serving, right? It's like who, your mental, like, where is it?
And what we recommend.
Yeah, I think I agree with all of that. The only thing I would say is, as a founder, you should definitely just give yourself the flexibility. Don't token early, right? Like you have to think about, and honestly, you should, going back to the previous point about research, there are some really top-notch, amazing tokenomics experts inside of venture funds, and some of them are publishing papers on all of this and how it works. Read their papers, send them an email, really think through what is the future tokenomics of this thing I'm doing. Do I need to do it now? Can I do it 3 years from now? Because that gives you maximal optionality, and that's what you need, like, to make sure your company can survive and maximize and optimize on all possible paths, right? So for me, it's like I completely agree on all of that. It's just I'd even inject the advice of don't do it before you have to, right? And it's even easier now because we're out of this bull run, because I feel like in the last year, everyone was like, when token, right? When is it in the token word? When token, right? So just chill for a bit and think about the actual futures that you want to take advantage of.
Yeah, so for me, I think if you just start your project, you don't think too much on like whether to raise like equity or token. I think more importantly is like you understand blockchain technology well. You can utilize the advantages of this technology well in your project. It's permissionless, it's trustless, it's decentralized. Then why you need blockchain in your project? I think that's more important. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So we have maybe time for 1 or 2 questions. Anyone? Yeah. So people, I'll give it to you so people can hear you, okay?
Thank you. So I guess a few of us that have been going through the past 18 months in crypto, especially since DeFi summer, and have seen quite a few projects go up and then crash spectacularly. Can sort of frame a pattern of integrity associated with many of the people that were behind these projects. So my question is to you as VCs, do you filter for integrity? And I understand that this is a complex question. And if so, how do you do that and what sort of techniques do you employ?
I can start, if you don't mind, Amos.
Yeah, of course. You will answer, then we'll move to another.
Okay. Yes, we do filter for integrity. It's actually the very most important filter that we have. 2 of our GPs, we have four GP owners in the firm at Noia. 2 of us, one coming from a family business and having at a very young age managerial experience and positions, and therefore have managed and interviewed a lot of C-level suit guys, basically. And myself, you know, I was 15 years in hedge funds, have had more than 3,800 one-on-ones with CEOs and CIOs and CFOs, basically of publicly listed companies. I've actually done ex-CIA courses on body language, etc., from ex-Mossad and ex-CIA guys that have built up businesses in the US that are charging hedge funds a lot of money for you to be able to read a person's body language in a meeting, etc. With COVID, it has become a bit more difficult because you do it online, but it's the most important thing. If I don't like the founder, if I don't think there's any question, and that's why I brought this topic up of token versus equity, if you feel like even the slightest hinge of an issue with the integrity, it doesn't matter how attractive the opportunity is, because I know I won't be able to finish it anyway, basically.
All right, let's maybe just last question. Yeah.
Is this turned on? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. On tokenization, and I forget the other keyword you used, but it's obvious. Dr. Pippa Malmgren mentioned a few months ago, I think, on a panel about the, I would call it the end of the stock market, so to speak, around the world. As she phrased it, stocks transitioning to stakes. I'm wondering if you see that future happening and are preparing for it and what you're planning for.
Guys, choose who wants to answer.
I don't think I understood the question. I didn't hear
Sure.
all of it.
So,
yeah, multinationals becoming so big that they become as important as governments, basically.
in other words, blockchain technology replacing the existing infrastructure for stock markets.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a very long-term, yeah.
I mean, you already see this with some of the tokenization that's happening with on FTX and stuff like that, right? It's just about, at the end of the day, kind of like what Queenie said, if you actually have an advantage to have blockchain technology doing this, I think it's unstoppable, right? That doesn't mean it's inevitable, like it's going to happen, but like the potential is there, right? It's just really more about, did the social and political angles align around it, and do they allow it to happen? And if they don't allow it to happen, that'll be interesting.
All right, guys, we're sorry, but we don't have more time. But we're here. You can ask us anything.
Yeah,
we'll stay here,
yeah.
around or outside. Find us, and you can ask us whatever you want. Okay? Sorry. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.